I'd like to call the Wolfeboro Select Board work session of April 30th, 2025, 4 o'clock. Call to order. Today is a workshop. We're going to discuss town ordinances, Chapter 36, Docks and Wharves. All right. Everybody had a chance to look through some of this stuff. There isn't a lot.
Where would we like to start? Would we want to start quick?
Well, we're going to start with our, we have a, what do you want to call it? Number 1 on our docket is Chapter 36, Docks and Wharves. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start there. How's that?
Yep. So the first thing that I see is under 36-5A. It says, no commercial vessel, floating, dredge, or barge is to use the town docks or to anchor within 100 yards from said town docks. We have no purview over not allowing a commercial vessel to anchor 100 yards from our town docks.
Well,
that is state waters, and they're allowed to do that if they choose.
Linda?
Yeah, I would like to find out whether we got any permission. There is a process in which you can get permission, and we should check our information to make sure we don't have anything. I had the same thing circled, but if it isn't, we may want to. There is a process that we can go through.
According to Marine Patrol, they said there's nothing in place.
Well, I would like the town to check.
Who would the town check with?
And who's going to be the checker? We don't want to waste the town attorney's money on this.
I'm not asking you. We've got staff here.
Who would the town check with?
It's check with state police in Guilford.
And Selectman Deshay just said checked. He already did, and they said there's nothing in place.
If you want, I will double check and I'll get it in writing.
Well, what I was going to suggest, Brian, is that you check again and get the name of the people that you have dealt with.
Yes, there you go.
And where.
I'll get it in writing. I'll have them email us.
Yep.
I would say it would probably be state police in Guilford at the town, at the docks.
Marine Patrol.
Yeah, Marine Patrol.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have a question here. When you ask, would you also ask what is the process to do that? Because we have this, and we also have the rafting or mooring off Kerry swim lines. And I think there's a process that you can get to have through the state to not allow it. And I think we should look into that.
Yeah.
Both here and there.
From the information that I gathered, you have the right to put out swim lines if you want to keep people away from you, and you have the right to put moorings out if you can prove you have a need for a mooring, but you can't tell people that they can't anchor in front of your property.
I'm talking about our swim lines. And as I went out and looked at some of the information on the website and the RSAs, and knowing that you can have mooring fields, you can do other things by permission of the state, I would like to look into whether we can get permission to keep them further off the swim lines, and whether we want to keep that 100, whether we want something that says that. And I think we should ask the state whether we can apply for it.
Hi, how are you? Sorry I'm late. 2 minutes.
Hi, John.
What are you discussing?
Nothing.
We're on our meeting things here. We have a list. We're dealing with number 1, Chapter 36, Docks and Wharves.
So what was the swim lines discussion?
This was 36-5A, and he was talking about the 10 yards from said town docks.
100 yards.
100 yards from town docks. And I brought up at that time, we may want to get permission to do that, and at the same time, we may want to also get permission to force the boats off the swim lines at Kerry Beach.
I'd like to, if I could, go ahead, Linda, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm done.
I'd like to add one more, Brian, if you wouldn't mind, to your quest. If you look out there, the wake buoys are 150 yards or 100 yards from the, not the end of the dock, but the beginning of the dock, okay? And I'm a boater, and I will tell you for certainty that what tends to happen is boaters coming into our docks present huge bow waves. And those huge bow waves, just if one of our dock attendants was here, they'd tell you, just raises hell with people at the docks, particularly over in those corner docks where we're going to talk about later. And so, Brian, if you're going to ask about a process for increasing, the distance, could we, because I know Meredith does it. Meredith is 400 yards off their docks. Could we petition to get the bow, the whatever's, those buoys, pushed out some more so that you're not presenting a huge bow wave coming into our docks?
Now, that is possible.
So Linda and I were
Well,
on
if we
the
can get
ad
that in
hoc
writing,
dock
that would be
committee.
great.
Didn't we ask the state if they could move them out to 300 feet, and they said no?
Yeah, John McDonald actually
It was all the way out to 300 feet, but I think if you stay within that, 100 foot.
150.
They were trying to get the whole bay, and I think it became because the people who had the mooring field were upset by the waves.
right.
So what Paul's saying is doable?
I think we're
I think it
going
could
to
be
ask that
from the end of the
question.
docks.
It's askable.
Ask the questions, and what process would the town follow
Brian's
to do
going to
those?
follow up on
It is,
that.
it's askable because.
It's askable.
If you want to look at precedents, all you got to do is get in your little dinghy and go over to Meredith. They are 400 yards away from their docks. You got to power down, and you have to operate at basic revolutions going in. So there's no turbulence at the docks. So if they can do it, and we have this situation going on out here, and by the way, Corinthian would probably jump up and say hooray, because people exiting our docks present bow waves over to Corinthian. So if we could do it, that'd be great, Brian.
I will ask.
Yeah, John, I think the other thing was they were going to go across the whole bay, and there are people who like to water ski over on that other side when
Yep.
we were looking at it
'Cause
at
it's protected.
300 feet,
Yep.
that wanted to still keep it. We're just talking about in front of our docks.
I had a.
Okay, is there anything else in?
Yeah, I did, Dave. Item B, on 36.5, item B, it says no permit required to launch. Not suggesting we should or shouldn't. Center Harbor requires a permit, or at least a fee, to launch. I'm just wondering if we want to visit that at some point. I'm not asking this that we do that.
Which one,
Are
Paul?
you under 36.5?
36.5, item B. It says no motor vehicles, construction equipment, skateboards, bicycles, No permit is required to launch or haul out pleasure boats at launching ramps.
Okay.
And my point is, not that I want to do this, just, to me, other towns, Meredith, Center Harbor, and I'm not sure about Alton, you have to pay a launching fee. I'm just wondering if we want to do that here, or not, that's all. Rhetorical question. That was the only one I had, other than Pop Whalen Boat Storage, which is
Right.
36.5, item K, sub 3. Island taxpayers and their visitors may obtain an island boat trailer permit that will allow them to park their boat at the Pop Whalen Arena for gravel, in the gravel parking area. And I believe Amy can update us. We do have a practice where they have to get a sticker. They have to be out
Right.
by October 1st. Is that correct?
It's right here on the back.
No? Oh, okay.
Hang on.
So yes, we currently are doing this, and we are going to have a request to update this piece of the ordinance. Steve, Randall, and Christine and I have been talking about this. We currently, during the construction of Pop Whalen, we moved this parking temporarily to Filter Bed Road. We want to move it permanently to Filter Bed Road and update the ordinance for that. We can't do it until late June of this year because it is currently a construction landing site for a current project going on. But because Pop Whalen is going to have summertime use And then this year, they're opening in August. We want to move the parking from that location to Filter Bed Road.
So you're going to get back, or somebody's going to get back and say, here's a recommendation to modify the ordinance, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, good.
So could we make a recommendation?
Sure.
So I was thinking about that this afternoon, and on Filter Bed Road, we have a couple different businesses out there who do boat work. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do with our town is represent our taxpayers. And I think if we offered a boat trailer parking permit for the season for $500, then we would be able to park boat trailers. Sorry, Paul, I don't need to.
No, I have a headache, and I'm trying to just press my temples here a little bit. I'm sorry, that's not you. Go ahead.
So we could park 20 boat trailers at the Filter Bed parking lot, because somebody has to keep track of those things. We can't just allow this thing to be the Wild West over there and a bunch of boat trailers be parked over there, where we have commercial businesses that just decide that they can park their boat trailers over there, or somebody that just wants to park their boat trailer there.
But I think it's directed particularly at island taxpayers. Doesn't say anything about me or you being able to take our trailer over there and park it. You have to present to the town hall that you are an island taxpayer before you can get this sticker.
So who's going to go over there and monitor this, and we have to pay them?
Well, I guess we'll have to have somebody do that, wouldn't we? But it's pretty specific, and always has been. This is for island taxpayers only, not for you and I. If we want to go fishing and leave that trailer over there for 4 days, we can't do that.
Okay, so
We have to be down here in the Glendon Street lot to do that.
okay, so you would have a defined parking boat trailer permit for an island resident
Or visitor.
visible on their trailer.
Correct. We currently issue a permit. I can understand your point, and it's a suggestion and note that I will write down in our discussions, because currently at Pop Whalen, it's easier to monitor it because we do have staff there full-time and regularly. So I will note, that we want to make sure that we just don't have people harry-carry using it. But they do have to have the permit on the trailer. And right now, it's May 1st to October 1st. So this past October, we had a couple there that were left afterwards, and we called them to give them the opportunity not to get towed, and they promptly moved them. So, but I do note that that could be a concern where it's an unmonitored location, so I will put that in the notes to talk to them about it.
I'm also looking to create some revenue for the town of Wolfeboro. Again, if you had 20 boat trailers parked at the Filter Bed spot, then you could get $500 a piece, and you could get a sum of money that could pay our bills.
Well, I have a problem with that, in that, again, this is for island taxpayers. I understand getting more revenue, but you're gonna have a problem with that, especially that amount of money. At least my feeling is. These are taxpayers we're talking about. They're already paying taxes.
I get that. I'm not talking about the taxpayers that are paying taxes already.
Well, but what you're saying is that anybody that parks anywhere else, you want to charge them $500 for the year?
No, I'm saying if this particular spot over there, if somebody has a boat trailer that they want to park off to the side for the season, then that would be a spot for them. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I think just for the public, this is very well spelled out. There's A, B, C, D, E, and F says right now, and if you're saying May 1st, it says April 1st through October 1st. So this is well defined. I think this should stay. If you're talking about maybe adding something to it, then we can talk about another, part of this ordinance for anybody, but I think the island is well-defined, and I agree with Dave, we've been doing this for years, but if the board wants to look at adding another section and have X number of parking spaces for a member of the public to rent for the summer, I think that is something other than what's here, and I think we could talk about that.
Yeah. And also on G in that one, it says any boat trailers left on site after the above dates will be ticketed and impounded. You want to get some revenue?
No,
You gotta-
they're gonna,
you gotta-
they're gonna
you
give
gotta
up
pay to
their,
get your
they're gonna
trailer.
give up their boat trailer.
Okay.
No, you don't know. Paul?
So I agree that what we need to do is make sure that island residents have a sticker. They're told where to park. They know what the rules are. Anyone that doesn't get a sticker gets a ticket.
Yep.
I'm not supporting the idea at the moment, and probably don't support the idea, and I'll tell you why in a second. I'm not supporting the idea of us getting into the business of saying, hey, if you want to rent some space from us to store your boat, that is a commercial enterprise, and I'd much rather let the people who are over on Filter Bed Road and other places collect that revenue. To us, to me personally, because we charge $500. And so what we're doing is we're competing with the business community. And the business community is going to go, well, wait a second, that guy's charging $500 and I charge $2,000. So I don't want to be in the business of competing with the business community.
Well, this is dealing strictly to.
Correct.
No, I'm just addressing
K.
John's concern about generating revenues.
Well, but this section we're talking about right now is boat trailer parking, period.
Right.
Nothing to do
Island.
with storing your boat or nothing to do with any of that, and I haven't heard John say that either.
Okay. I thought I did. I
At least
apologize.
not yet.
Okay, not yet.
And trailer storage can go anywhere from 100 to 800. Genes Hill Auto and Marine offers it for $3. Faye's Boatyard offers it for $150 per season. Lakes Region Wooden Boat offers it for $100. So,
So there's other people out there that do that.
yeah. And you can do that with Goodhue, and you can do that with Wolfeboro Boat Company and whatnot.
I think we want to be in the business, if that's the right word, of ensuring that island taxpayers have a place to put their boat trailer safely with a sticker, period.
And I agree, we've done this for years, and I think, other than needing to change the spot, this has worked well. I don't see any point of...
Has it worked well? Do we know that?
Okay, well, what we're
It
trying
does
to.
work, it does. I mean, everything can have, improvements to do better. And I think that we see that many of these trailers are actually from Lake Wentworth, because there's limited space at Mass Landing. So I just know that the few that we had that scraggled behind, because I think our other recommendation when we come forth with some changes will be to request to change this to from October 1st to by Columbus Day weekend.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of where we have an issue. Some of those island residents like to squeeze their time right out there. So. And I don't think it's a lot, but when we talk about this again and provide the updates, I'll make sure that we give you a lot of the background information, John, of how many people this is and who and what, and a copy of the sticker and all that.
So I think we also have to work a little bit on the Glendon Street parking lot. I've had a couple of citizens in town come to me over the years and say that it's difficult to park a trailer there, especially if cars don't park correctly. There's not a lot of room for a lot of trailers there. Some trailers get left there overnight and for periods of time and take up spots. So it's something that we may have to look at, either expanding that area for people that launch for the day and figuring out if there's a way that we can monitor and make sure that trailers aren't abandoned there.
So your
They're not
idea would,
necessarily, well, I guess you could call them abandoned if they're stretching. So that is another topic, probably for a different night,
Yep.
not to belay you on what you're focusing on, but that is a space that would be next on our list to target. I do get a lot of calls over the summertime because people get short-term rentals and they're looking for places. If they get a short-term rental that doesn't have enough room to store their boat and their trailer, they want to know where they can store that overnight. So you have some folks that actually do call and ask, and then I think you have some folks who are parking their trailers there and leaving them overnight. We don't have overnight boat trailer parking.
Correct.
So to that point, I think the town tried to get the planning board to discuss the parking lot ordinance so that people could develop parking lots where people could actually build parking lots and people could pay to store their vehicles overnight in a safe manner. And I don't know how this board feels about that, but I think this is a tandem to that point, to tell you the truth.
I think we need to stay focused on docks and wharfs.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I just wanted, this is still on Island, and then we had received a letter from somebody saying that there was not a spot on Back Bay, and you can see it's the second dock closest to Main Street. We have the jet ski on one and the
Right.
islands, and it is so marked.
Yep. Yeah, and you can get a sticker and park out here.
Yep.
too.
Your boat, yes.
All right, anything else on under 36 right now?
Sure, I'd like to talk about, commercial use with the exception of the ramp at dock at the Libby Museum and the fees associated with that.
Okay, we're going to get into that next with commercial vessel spreadsheet.
I just brought it to Amy's attention for L, that the time doesn't really line up. It says that docking of boats at the town docks is limited to 4 hours between the hours of 6 and 6 a.m., 6 p.m., and then it says no docking of boats at said docks is permitted between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m., so what's happening between 6 p.m. and 1 a.m.?
Yeah, I think the
You
1
stick
to
around and watch the
6
fireworks.
is
Correct.
more appropriate
Yeah.
than the 6. There are tons of boats. The other one that I have is G. It says, "No vehicle shall dock in the slip closest to any public launching ramp except the dock for a period no less than 10 minutes shall be allowed." Well, does that mean that we can, down by this launching ramp, that they can use that to unload and load?
Yeah, that's what I think it was set up for.
so
The
Linda,
one- So as the
for
ramp
this-
comes down, this spot right here is a public space to load and unload.
so if you're backing your boat into the water and you're going down the ramp,
Yeah.
on the left-hand side, you can't park in there.
Six.
On the
Right.
right-hand side, you can park in there.
But
not-
my understanding is that that's only for 10 minutes. That's a public parking 10 in. If I read this right,
Yeah,
except
you
for 10
can-
minutes. So somebody can come in, if I'm an islander, I can come in
Right.
to that spot, drop my people off, and go back out.
So
That's what I'm trying to clear up.
I think the loading and unloading, they mean loading and unloading on a trailer.
But it doesn't say that.
So we have to add with a trailer.
To me, I said, oh, we got another public space.
So we have a resident expert here, but the way I've seen it done is exactly what Brian says. I back my trailer down into the water, the boat floats off, I pull the boat, again, facing out to the lake, I pull it off to the left, I tie it up, I take my trailer out to the parking lot, and I have to scoot back to get that boat out of there.
But I hear you say that because you're doing it, but I'm driving in. And I see, and I read this, says, that's one of the places I can use. It says I can do it, I have 10 minutes to load and unload.
So what's your
I can unload
suggestion?
that, and I can turn around and
What's
go
your
back out.
solution?
So we have
We
to
have
put
to
a
change
sign
the
up on
wording so
those.
it's-
Change it right now, let's do it.
Yeah, but you have to let the public know that that spot is for temporary loading and
it marked?
unloading.
I'm with you. It's not what we're looking, if it's 15, we got to get what's out there and what's on our piece of paper. That's what, it says 15 minutes, okay. There we
And does
go.
it say 15 minutes to launch and unlaunch, or does it say 15 minutes, just 15 minutes? So we need to change that sign so that
Well,
it needs to
no,
say such.
if it works just 15 minutes,
works.
it's another spot that somebody coming in, if nobody's launching, can drive in, drop their people and go. another public drop-off.
Then we have to make this say that.
I'm looking at other people, whether they agree with me, that's what it reads to me. Is that what we want?
Yeah, I'm not,
I would leave that as launching and unlaunching. 15 minutes, launch, unlaunch your boats. End of story.
personal opinion, Linda, having navigated in there, I don't think you want people coming in with a boat trying to find their way in there to pull over to let people out and then try to back out. I think that's cumbersome, at least for, for my skill level. I think the theory here is this is for launching, but if somebody wants to change that, I'm sure that's...
I think if it's just for launching, the loading and unloading, we need to be clear.
Sure.
Is people comfortable? I'd like to hear from Bruce, who's down there all the time. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you like to know?
Has that been only used for somebody who's launched a boat to load and unload? Do people come in there to drop people off?
No, they don't come and drop people off there. I try to make them go over to the 15-minute area by the
Really? And it's, so we really need this to say for those
load and unload.
launching
Yes.
or taking out their boat. We need to
Right.
make this specific to that.
Yep,
Thank you.
yep, yep,
Loading or unloading boats on trailers.
right, whatever. Okay,
Okay, anything else in 36? We get into commercial vessel?
Well,
Commercial vessels,
I think,
commercial vessels.
spreadsheet. under 36.5, we do get to O, which is what I think John was talking about, the Libby Museum. Because this is all under 36.5, limitations of use of docks and wharves. It's coming down. I think that's, John, isn't that one you
Yeah.
wanted to talk about?
Yep.
Which one? Oh?
Oh,
Oh. So I've heard from different people that own barges who think that the people that use the barge dock are there for too long. They don't know how to load their barge, and therefore they think that the dock should have a allowable time of a half an hour so that people can load their barge, and if they can't load their barge, then they need to go back out in line and get behind the people that can load their barge in a half an hour, and then they those people can leave, and then the next boat or barge that comes in, they can load their barge, and if those people can't load their barge in a half an hour, then they need to go out. But the fact is, some people park their barges for longer than the legal limit, which is not defined.
Yeah,
if
2
it says
hours.
limited to 2 hours for loading, unloading, O1.
Longer than the legal limit, 2 hours, that's what I'm saying. It's too long. You can't have people that are running a business that are trying to load the barge where they leave their barge and go downtown for a sandwich and then come back. And people need to load their barge in the morning, and they need to get out there and do their work.
so if I could, so I'm grasping for clarity here. Do we know factually that this is what's going on? Or is this, no disrespect to what you're saying, is this hearsay?
No, this is direct from a barge owner that sits out there and watches the people fumble around.
So the recommendation would be, you can't leave your barge unattended. You can't, we're not going to do the, you can't get on time. You cannot leave your barge unattended.
We want you to load your barge.
We want you to get in and
off.
out, and let's say it's an hour.
No, it's too long. That's what.
Well, it depends upon what they have to load and
Yeah.
unload.
Well, I'm just telling you what the barge people are telling me.
So the barge people are telling you.
Yes,
Who are so you got a couple of barge people.
they're telling me that for you to load a truck on a barge should take no longer than a half an hour.
If you have a barge that comes in with a fully demoed cottage on top of that barge, and they have to load that into
A truck.
couple of trucks to get it off and then at the same time, they're loading lumber materials because Winnie Lumber is waiting there with a whole flatbed of materials. That's going to take 2 hours.
So that's what they're saying. They're saying those people should go back out in line because there's 4 barges out there waiting in line for them to come in and do their business.
So maybe an approach to this, because we're into 2 areas. One is, do we have a right fee structure? 'Cause I think the fee structure was set 2 years ago, and no disrespect to the term, it felt arbitrary, which is $3,000. It was proposed at $1,500, and it went to 3. But the second is, you have a concern that barge operators may be, whatever, I wouldn't say abusing the privilege. Would it make sense to get a handful of the barge operators, kind of like have them come in and share their experiences and recommendations?
I think we need some names. I mean,
I talked to one barge operator last night on the phone. And I said, how's it working down there? And his comment to me was, it's pretty, well, my words, well-mannered. I mean, if there's somebody got to move around. But you're suggesting, though, that it isn't that way. So we need to get the...
And the $3,000 was slightly arbitrary, but it was set by who? A guy who owns a barge.
No, I'm not here.
It was his idea.
Hey, members of the public, we're not here to find victims or yell at people or say I'm smarter than somebody else. All I'm saying is there was no method to this. It was just set, okay? So maybe what we should do is get some barge operators in here and say, what's going on?
Yeah.
So to your point, if they're abusing the privilege, okay, then we have to...
Luke said it based on him knowing the different launching areas of the lake for barges, talking to people in Guilford and other areas, and coming back and saying $3,000 is good because it's taking it from, it was $300, and taking it up to $3,000 is a 10 times increase, but he said it's still a reasonable cost of doing business for barge owners.
Actually, he recommended $1,500. Somebody else recommended $3,000, and now he's...
No, he recommended 3, and I wanted $1,500.
Well, it doesn't make to me, that doesn't make any difference.
We said 3 from the start.
We need to look at the 3,000 and decide whether we want to do something different and what reasoning we use.
For 2
I
reasons,
think we're really discussing exactly how do we address what John is saying is that 2 hours is too long and that we got people abusing the loading and unloading. That's what I heard.
Well, this is the first I've ever heard of that.
I'm saying that's what he brought up. How are we going to address that?
Right. If you look at 05, it says, a flagman wearing a fluorescent vest shall be in attendance to direct traffic.
Is that going to be...
So that says to me that somebody needs to be at the Libby Museum 5 days a week with a vest on, directing traffic. It says so right here. It says shall. And to me, shall means there shall be somebody there. Well, I don't think there's ever been anybody there.
I kind of read it as the person who was loading needed that person.
Yeah, it doesn't say it has to be a town employee flagman, a police flagman, or a member of the barge. It could be one of the barge hands who has to stand out there with a vest and a flag and
but
make
this
sure
is our ordinance, and it says we shall have somebody there. That's what it says.
Yeah, I would interpret that to what Mr. Senecal said. We own that one. We don't say, hey, you got to show up with a vest. We own it.
Well, this is the first time that I've heard anything what John is saying about, and I understand some of these guys with the barges aren't any smarter than some of the people bringing boats into the docks down here and don't understand how to do it.
So how do you want to?
But there are plenty of others that come in there, they load, unload, and they're gone.
That's what this guy said. He says, I'm in there, I unload, I load, and I'm out of there in 20 minutes.
Yep.
So instead of problems, let's have solutions. What's the solution?
I have a solution.
Go ahead.
Well, I work construction my whole life. I have a load of brick come. I tell the super, I'm going to be 4 hours to unload these brick. Why don't these, I don't know how many barges you have, they have to talk to each other. My truck's coming in at 8 o'clock. Oh, well, I got one at 10 o'clock. All right, let's work it out. But they got to talk to each other too, I think. I mean, but 15 minutes, an hour, sometimes it's not enough.
So
Yeah,
that's what I'm hearing from this particular barge owner. The barge owner says, yeah, we're all friends out there, but he says, what we want to do is we want to have a system out there where we know that if you're running too long, he's saying, well, 20 minutes. I said half an hour. He says, no, it's too long. I says, okay. Well, I said, you got to give them time to get their stuff going and get out of the landing. He says, well, that's fine. I says, so what do you want to do? He says, well, he said, make it 20 minutes. I says, I can't push to make it 20 minutes. I can do what I can do and present it to the board and say, we need to shorten the amount of time.
So I remember when Luke was here and he was talking to us, he said that when he comes in, if he knows that he has more than 2 hours, he will work 2 hours, he will pull his barge out. If somebody shows up, he said, I'll just pull it. If I know I have another hour to go and I see somebody who's just picking up a truck or something, he goes, this is on them. This is not on us to hold their hands and dictate what the hell they do out there. Let them take care of it.
Are you holding the hands for somebody?
Well, I think we are if we're going to say, well, half an hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 47 minutes,
2
an hour and
hours?
15 minutes. I mean,
You're talking about 2 hours.
yeah. And how many people exceed the 2 hours? And if they do, then that barge owner should get on his phone, call Wolfeboro, and either to the police department or town hall and say,
Come on,
I've been
Brian.
waiting here for 3 hours. Can somebody come down and do
Can we
something?
get that guy with the vest to come
Come
down
on,
here?
Brian.
Yeah.
I think
the guy
that
with the
bothers
vest will
me
take
more
care
than
of it.
anything else. If we're saying we're supposed to have somebody down with a vest, we should remove that, because we aren't going to do that and haven't
No.
done it. So
No,
if that's
no,
how you're reading
so-
it, I
so
had read it
I-
another way. I'd like to also make one more statement. I'm not going to vote on any of this. My son
No.
is doing his own barge
Oh, that's
company
right.
now, and I'm going to, he's one of the guys who's paid, so I really am not going to get involved in this.
So
So you're recusing yourself to step
From-
away from the table while
From
we have
talking
this discussion?
about, oh,
Yeah.
okay,
When
I'm
it
not going to
comes-
be involved in it.
I like Bruce's idea that it's not that we have, a size of an NFL football team here. We have a handful of barge operators. They all know each other. And we should expect them to talk to each other. If they can't do that, then we could probably step in and say, you can only load or offload your barge from 6 a.m. until 9 a.m. in the morning, and you're done. We could do that, but John, I think saying 20 minutes, 38 minutes, I think that's not going to help. If these guys, generic term, if these guys want to talk to each other, they should. If they want to complain, they can. If it gets really bad, then we'll put a collar on it.
Why don't we
6 to 9, boom, done.
I don't agree with you, Paul.
We'll try.
It's like we're basically saying we're just going to keep it the way it is.
But I haven't heard a recommendation.
So I recommended that we reduce it to a half an hour, and then the people go out and get back in line if they want to reload.
But let's just get practical. First of all, I don't understand how you come up with 30 minutes. Secondly, I'm in the middle of hunking stuff off my barge, and all of a sudden my whistle blows, and I go, I got to stop and. How does that work? I mean, logistically, how does that work? And I'm not smart enough to know that. How that would work. Amy, save us.
Okay. So I gotta say, these barge companies are pretty good to work with. I am getting ready to write them a letter that I kind of write with the reminder each year, because this was new. I mean, I don't know how long I'm gonna do that, but I figured I'd put it out this year. With the application, they usually come in or they call me, and I could take like a poll from them. Do you see any issues? How's this program working? Do you have any suggestions? Do you want me to do that? That way it's kind of fair and we're asking all of them?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes? No?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, when people are slow, they're gonna want to be slow. That's the problem. And you got to understand what a barge costs the homeowner and the taxpayer and the guy on the island. We're talking about the island people here, so we need to be thinking about what the island people are paying to have the barge sit there and wait for 3 people in line, so they could conceivably sit there for 6 hours waiting for somebody to unload. Well, there's 12 barges on that list.
But only 3 have paid in '24 and 5 in '23.
Again,
Well, that's a whole different issue.
again, sample size of 1, I'm a boater. I boat down there too. I've never had a situation but once where I was waiting for a barge and I was going in at like 7 o'clock in the morning. I've never had a problem. Now, if we think it's a problem, if the operators are telling us it's a problem, then we can deal with it. But I've never had a problem with that.
I'm conveying the message.
I understand.
And the person that said to me, if I'm going to pay the fee, I want a little bit more structure. And I said to him, okay, well, let's talk about the fee. I honestly don't believe that the fee should be $3,000. I think the fee should be compensatory to what people do the work out on this island. If you're out there building a breakwater, the breakwater is going to be $50,000 or $60,000. If you're out there building breakwaters all summer long, I think the fee should be $10,000 for a barge operator to come do the landing.
Well, I don't think this is just island people. I think it's anybody on the shoreline. Because a lot of these places, you can't get any big
Right.
trucks or equipment down in them anyway,
That's right.
except from the water. So I don't think it's just the island people out here. I think it's more, you got a lot of shoreline out here.
That's right. I mean, it's the
Okay,
people.
so even more so,
That's right.
there's a lot of
That's what I'm
work.
saying.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a problem up there any time I've gone by or sat there. The only thing I have had in the past is some of these barges sit there and they anchor and they put a plank to the shoreline and they sit there for days.
Well, one thing, and I don't think it's in this ordinance, one thing I would
that
ensure is that we should not be offloading any barges on the
I don't
break
think
wall,
so either.
on the seawall. Barges should not, is it?
We don't, it's in there.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
I don't even remember reading it, but that is probably something we should say, no way, you're not doing that.
I'd like to make a motion to change number 5 under O to the barge operator is responsible to not impede traffic on Route 109 and replace 5, the flagman wearing a fluorescent vest shall be in attendance to direct traffic.
Are you allowed to make motions in a
No,
work
we
session?
can't make, we're not changing it tonight. We're only taking information.
So that would be a suggested change.
Save it.
5 would change to the barge operator is responsible to not impede traffic on Route 109. Number 5, replacing the flagman, because we talked about that. So let's do solutions. If we all agree that there's a problem with 5, let's have solutions.
I don't believe there's a problem with number 5. I'm saying we can pay somebody to be number 5 if we charge enough money.
Based on the hours, that would be 66 hours, 7 to 7, 5 days a week, and 7 to 1 on Saturday. That's a lot of hours to pay somebody.
So if you got $10,000 from 12 barge owners, that's $120,000 a year you could pay for somebody's salary.
KC just said that we had 5 last year, and how many?
3 this year.
There's
we had
12 on the list.
9,000
Yeah.
paid.
Yeah, but, okay, there's 12, but if we only have 5 out of 12, we have 5 out of 12. We don't have 12, we have 5.
So that's not our problem. Our issue is not with the 12 that don't pay. That's the administration's issue to get them to pay.
Well, are you saying that they're showing up and not paying, or they're just not using our ramp?
I'm just looking at the chart set and from the testimony here that says only a couple people are paying.
Yeah, I'm asking you, do you think that those additional people that aren't paying are using it illegally, or are they not using it and not paying?
I know what I've heard from one particular barge owner who's commented on moving their product in and out. I'm not privy to whether or not people are paying, only unless I look at the sheet and say there's only one person on the sheet that's paid the money. That's not my purview, Brian.
Okay.
The purview of our administration, our town manager, our assistant town manager, that's their job to do that.
Well, I think if Amy's going to be sending out stuff to the barge owners, I think part of that letter or whatever you had mentioned that you would put in there, are there any issues and are there any comments that you would like to see changed? I think that's the reasonable way to do it, because we're not going to solve that.
So I think the conversation went in a couple of different directions.
Yeah.
And I want to bring it back. Do we think that the barge operators should tell us if there's a problem? The answer is yes, and that would be a suggestion for Amy to say, hey, are you folks experiencing a problem? Right? Do we think there are barge operators that are using the facility and not paying their annual dues? That's an inspection issue, and I don't know how we deal with that, but that's something to think about. We did have one of those last year, and somebody took their smartphone and kind of went, and the day after that, the person paid. So if we think there's someone abusing the privilege, then we ought to do that. Do I like the idea we should not have a flag person wearing a fluorescent vest? I like that idea. And no, I like Brian's suggestion. My only point on the fees, whatever we decide the fees to be, we need to understand, and you all did this 2 years ago, those fees got to go into a sinking fund, so that structure all has to get fixed up. And particularly if new trustees take over the Libby, we can't, I don't personally believe that we can encumber them with a situation where they have to pony up donated dollars to fix the docks.
I checked with Casey's, there's 36,000
in
a designated account.
Right.
And
Restricted fund balance.
okay,
Good.
I don't see that on our monthly reports.
No, you wouldn't. It's on the balance sheet.
So it might help us during this period when we're getting some more in. Would you give us a total?
I
So
believe Amy can work with Sam to get that on her monthly report.
Sure.
Yeah, it just makes sense because we're having.
And for the public, let's be clear, all the barge fees that we collect go to just maintain that ramp, wharf, and dock area.
And
Can't
breakwall.
do that.
That's what they're for.
And breakwall.
I don't believe it's the breakwater. I think it's just the dock.
It's just the ramp and the dock.
I think we should go back. We'll have to
Double check.
find the
There is
motion when we
document-
made it.
There's documentation on it, I just don't have it.
Yeah,
with me.
because we had the breakwater we did in 2 segments, and that was redone. I thought it was because the people are launching, so it's the ramp and the dock related to.
It was the ramp and the dock.
So,
And
but
that's
we
what
can
it's-
check on it. I have no
Fine.
problem
That's
going
fine.
to check
That's
the
fine.
minutes
That's
for
fine.
that.
That's fine. Okay.
So we're going to send a bill out retroactive to the people that didn't pay their bill last year?
So we're on a new season, and what I will do for a future selectmen's meeting is the spreadsheet that I gave you has a list of all the dock companies that I originally inquired when you put the new policy into place. So I wrote everyone a letter. Most everyone that uses it didn't really have any qualms and went through our process, and they do have to come before you as the selectmen to approve them. So you'll see the permits come in with the fee and the insurance and all the things needed. So we will not send out ones retroactive. I mean, I did have one customer last year that, didn't really want to do the process. And I do seem to have someone that lives in that area that likes to police it, which is why we make the permit nice and bright and ask them to keep it in the window. So you can tell if they come in, I change the color every year so that it's not the same. So I think last year might have been pink, so I will change it to blue, and they're supposed to have a blue permit in. The baby steps of doing and creating this process, it's something we didn't have before, but we always have the issue when it comes to policing things and how we're going to monitor it and who's going to do it and how that happens. Fortunately, right now, I seem to have someone who likes to police it and call me up.
I have a question. Is Beckworth Marine Construction still operating a barge?
I have to say they've paid the last 3 years.
So Beckwith Marine has always complied in the past. Nobody has put in their new permits for the year except for Murray's is on your list.
Murray Specialty
Murray
Services?
Specialty Services.
Yeah.
But I
What
can
I
tell
can
you
tell
that
you is he's doing Beckwith's.
Yeah, he's using Beckwith's
No,
barge.
he is using his own stuff,
Yeah.
his own company, but will be doing the work for Beckwith.
Okay.
So I don't expect Beckwith to come in because I don't think he has barges anymore.
I see.
Okay, that's what I was saying. And that's what I had heard, but I was looking for confirmation.
So I'm looking for confirmation whether or not we're going to bill the people that used our area to load their barge last year, and whether or not we're going to give them a free pass, and we're going to just allow them to repay for this year. Is that what's going to happen?
I don't have any direction to bill for last year. It's kind of difficult for me to prove whether they've used it or not. I can go on someone reporting to me, hey, this barge is here. For instance, the one that was in question, I asked if you could get a picture next time because it would really help me. That person got a letter from the town manager. It might have been a couple letters, and then ultimately I did get the fee. I don't think they complied with everything on the permit, but at least we got the fee. So if anyone is not complying and it's reported to me that this person has used the dock and does not have a permit, I would check to make sure the company didn't have a permit, and then I would write them a letter.
So do we have Wi-Fi at the Libby Museum?
Yes?
So why don't we set up a Wi-Fi, a camera at the Libby Museum so we can keep track and we don't have to be there? I mean, our taxpayers are out there looking at us saying, are we responsible for our town properties?
Okay, so I said the same thing 3 years ago.
There you go.
Verbatim. And it was mentioned to me, who's going to watch the tapes, who's going to go through every minute and make sure that somebody didn't come in at 7 a.m. on Tuesday, August 15th, and was there for 2 hours and left, and that's the only time they used it all summer. I had that suggestion. They said, you need somebody to watch 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours of tapes every day, all week long.
And that goes to my point, Brian, of charging a fee amount so that we can justify doing our backup and covering our butt. If we're not charging enough money, we're sitting here saying, well, we don't have enough money to do our job. So we need to, these people are making a lot of money out there doing a lot of work. It's our responsibility to the taxpayers.
So I got both of the arguments. The tried that, didn't work, and yours. I got both of those things. So the question I'm asking myself is, so what do we want to do here? Do we want people to self-report? We're asking them to do that, and we think we have one or two people who may not be doing that. One thing you could do is the people who, were supposed to self-report and didn't, you catch them, and they're off the docks you're out. You just can't see you. You're not getting back next year. Something like that's pretty draconian. But you could do it that way. You could do an electronic thing where if they pull something down, they go down the ramp, something's going to trigger a time motion sensitive thing. You could do that too. So we have a reporting problem. And I don't know how to fix it. I don't want people ratting each other out. That's sleazy to me, but that does suggest that we're not paying attention. But what are we going to do? I mean, do we want to have gendarmes everywhere with, kind of standing ready to rat somebody out? What do we want to do?
So
with yellow vests. I'm being pejorative, but what do we want to do here?
So what John is saying is what Center Harbor does for their regular docks. They hire a dockhand that they pay $6,000 a year. The dockhand is only there on maybe Saturdays and Sundays, or Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And the dockhand's responsibility there, it's not a dockhand, it's a dock officer, they call him. That person is responsible to make sure that the docks are not used for commercial purposes. They collect launch fees, and they make sure that boats don't have milfoil on them. They collect $5,000 in launch fees, and they pay that person $6,000. So they lose $1,000 a year, but they consider it a necessary service to make sure that they don't have commercial operation on their docks, and that boats that go in and out don't have milfoil on them. And they only charge launch fees for out-of-towners. So John's saying that what we could do is have a person that monitors that ramp all the time. If that was $15 an hour, 66 hours a week, $990 a week, times the 25 weeks of the summer, we're looking at $25,000 or $30,000 for the position. It would have to be 2 people. There would be, then you'd have insurances and other things on top of that, and compensation, so they may end up being up to, who knows, maybe it's $50,000 or $60,000. John says then if we pay, or if we charge $10,000 and we get 5 barges, that's $50,000. We pay $50,000 for the employee. It's a wash, but we know that the ramps are getting used correctly. However, we then lose all the revenues that we were going to have to fix the docks. So now we're going to have to change the model a little bit and make sure that we get more than 5 dock people, or charge them $15,000, or only have the ramp launch people there during the weeks, maybe not on the weekends. A lot of moving parts for us to operate a new business.
There's 13 names right here.
I don't care if there's 500 names there. It's the number of people that actually use the facility.
And that's on the other sheet where you have the people who've paid.
This is the paid.
No?
No,
This is the paid.
That's just the list.
That's the list.
it's just a list of people that have barges on the lake.
The paid.
If you look, it's
Only
coming to the
one's
selectmen
paid.
on May 7th, so it hasn't been approved by the selectmen, so nobody's paid on that list.
So the recommendation, if I heard it over here, was let's get some dock attendants down there. Let's ensure that they are available, they're
Such a
paid,
waste.
compensatory, and let's add that fee to the sinking fund and divide that by the amount of people who show up, and that's your annual fee. You do that.
And we got to find the employees who want to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you more need to find, I think we got a legal opinion that these fees could only be used for the repair of the docks and the barges, not for internet and people, is what I remember.
Yeah, and not for paying a dockhand there, so then that money comes out of someplace else.
And
I
that's
think-
why it's in a restricted fund balance. You could hire people in your operating budget to be dock monitors, but.
So here we go again, asking
But we're
the
in a default
taxpayer-
budget.
Asking the taxpayer to
Right.
go, pay the
That's
bill
not gonna work.
for what's going on down there. That doesn't make a bill of sense
No.
to me.
Doesn't to me either. But
Now,
if we have Wi-Fi and it's available, and we have a 24/7 dispatch center that could be tied into this, we wouldn't need anybody up there.
can I ask Casey a question? Casey, in that legal opinion, yeah, you're right. You could set it so that if you could do a certain object, you have smart cameras. In this opinion you got, was that only for this restricted fund, or was it?
Yeah, I believe that's what it was for. I'm trying to look it up. I don't have it
Okay.
electronically, but
Would you mind, taking that as a lookup, if we could add something to that fund, like?
I think Dave was talking, yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, I mean, if we have we have some cameras on different sites now that go into dispatch. One more, they can just, the screens that they have, how many they have a bunch of them. And they're all labeled as to where they are and what they are, with
Right.
date and time stamps on them. I don't think it would be too hard for us to add that to their busy schedule.
To dispatch?
Up at dispatch. Either that or, how about if we send it to the county and get some of our money back from them?
There we go.
Okay, there's another idea. But I don't think we need to charge $10,000 for barges to get enough money to have somebody up there 24/7. Just doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
So I think that either we patch it through to dispatch like we do, say with Foss Field or some other
Right.
areas where we have cameras now.
Right.
Why can't we tie that area in the same way?
Well, the
fact,
only thing with that, and I agree with you, Dave, the only thing with that is those cameras are for incidents. There's not somebody watching all the time. If something gets broken, then they'll go to that day and they can look at one day. In order to find a barge for a 6-month period of time that goes and lands illegally, you have to watch 6 months worth of footage.
Yeah,
But
but
That's the issue.
But if somebody said somebody launched on such and such a day, we could go back and get that.
That is correct.
That's what,
You could do that.
yeah,
that is
I think
correct.
that's what we're talking
I
about.
think that's what you're looking at.
That is correct.
To have
So people can
Somebody
still...
up there with a vest on during the week,
Yeah,
during daylight hours seems pretty stupid to me.
yes, absolutely.
That's a waste of money, and I'll tell you,
We've never
Correct.
done it.
That's why I made
we'd
the
hear
motion.
about that one, for
That's
sure.
why I made the motion, which we can't do, or
Which
made the
we can't.
suggestion to get rid of that
We're gonna
flag
look
person
into
and-
these, Amy's gonna look into some of the wording. All right,
So with the camera, we
Three-
might be able to catch one person during the summer that does it, but we probably won't catch if 4 people are gaming the system, because
yeah,
we'll have to know the day, the time, when they showed up. Somebody saw them already.
$3,000 is not enough money. I'm sorry.
So then I would I'm going to do this, John. They asked me to take and call Marine Patrol and find out about the 100 yards from town docks, to find out about swim lines off Cary Beach, and to find if the no wait can be pushed out. Can you call other towns that have launches on the lake and find out what barge costs?
I was already told that from this barge operator, it was cheaper for them to drive to Moltenboro, where it's free, than to wait for somebody for 2 hours to unload, which basically they said, we're not going to pay our $3,000 a year to sit there and wait for somebody. We're just going to go to Moltenboro where it's free.
Okay.
then we don't get the damage to ours.
But you're proving my point, David.
So I had 3 different barges come out of Moltenboro when they built our house over the last 2 years, and they all waited in line for each other.
And they will.
It was the same thing over there. If it's free and everybody goes there, they're going to be waiting there too. So they'll wait for free, or they'll wait for $3,000. Who knows?
So does nobody here on this board want to increase the rate for the landing fee?
And if I find out that Moltenboro is free, and I know Guilford is free for residents of either Guilford, I think they can launch for free there, but they charge a barge charge for large barges. I don't know if Phase charges to launch barges, but I'd like to know what everybody else is charging. If we find out 3,000 we're charging the most, why would we go up? If we find out that 3,000 we're charging the least or a mid-grade, we can raise it then. But I don't do things without having numbers to back up what I'm going to do.
How much money have we spent to fix our dock?
There you go.
Since we started collecting, none in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
We've not used any of the 36,000 that we've.
We are going to have to address some things soon.
Yeah.
We built a boat ramp where there's cement things down in the water.
Right.
I mean, we don't have any record of the improvements that we made to our boat ramp at the Libby Museum.
I'm just saying, since we collected these fees, we have not had any.
See, and that's kind of interesting because, again, I boat down there, so sample size with me. I could not get my pontoon boat trailer up on the, up off the water because of the scour that happens when the big barges pull out. That concrete ramp dropped down 18 inches. I literally, 18 inches. So I had to do some unusual things to get my boat up there. That was about a year and a half ago. And I did report that. I wasn't on the board, but I did report that, and I thought that got fixed. It didn't get fixed.
What time of year was it?
It was summertime. It was the fall.
It was the fall.
Yeah, actually, you know what, Brian? It was the fall because I was all done valeting, you know, over there. Your valet season ends at Labor Day unless you want to pay more. And so I was towing the boat, dropping it off at the Libby, and it was after Labor Day. So it was in that October thing. I couldn't get out. And this is like a year ago. So I don't know, maybe that came out of a different budget or something. But it was a big problem.
We can check that and
Yeah,
see
please
if any.
Again, the only
do
person I
believe
know
we-
that launches there regularly is Jody Pearson comes to me and talks about it, and I have not heard him say that it's a hard time, sorry to interrupt, that it's a hard time getting in and out of there. He did say to me, why don't we charge launch fees at all of our launches? And again, that's something we'll discuss later.
So I don't want to put the board on the spot here, but I did ask a question whether or not the rest of the board members were interested in raising the fees for the boat launch.
The answer is yes, if we can demonstrate that there is a, and yes, I'm not sure I want to estimate their revenue and say, you're making a lot of money and I want a piece of that action. No, I want to make sure that that fee structure that we put down there ensures that either us or the successors of us make sure that that dock is in great physical condition, it's usable, and when it comes time to repair it, fix it, whatever we have to do, either we or they, whoever the successors are, don't have to go to their donors and say, oh, by the way, I need more money to fix the docks, it's somebody else's wrecking. So I'd like to make sure that the fee structure resembles or is equitable to that. So whatever that number is, I'll help do the math.
But it doesn't mean that the next, whoever
got
they
it.
are going to have that as a barge dock. So let's not.
That's true.
Okay, just
Correct.
want to add that.
Correct.
I just want to add that
That's
into
true.
your analysis.
That's true, but I'd like to
Board
make
of
sure that
Selectmen did that how many years ago in Wolfeboro? If we give it to a museum company, they may say that dock is just for looking at.
yeah, no,
Or
I.
they may decide to do it another way.
They may decide to do it another way, but, you know, I'd at least want to go into this conversation by saying, to your point, Lynn, I agree with that. We don't want to go into the conversation by saying, by the way, we're going to encumber you with this big, bad thing called fixing the dock. So we want to make sure that there's money there to do it.
And-
If there was a decision made that says we're not going to use those for that purpose, fine.
And I did answer John's question. My answer is, I want to know what we should raise it to. I want to know what the other ports around the lake are charging.
So if you looked at the cost that we spent on the money to put those cement things in there and to rebuild the dock, then maybe we would want to recoup those costs.
So that's what I was going to say. I believe this whole barge concept stemmed out of the construction work that was done at the Libby Museum. I don't want to quote me exactly, but I believe it was somewhere around $37,000 or so to make those repairs that we did the last time at the Libby dock. And then this idea of the barges coming in there and creating the fee spun out of that as a way to start collecting fees and be able to have the money to make the repairs to the dock. I think, Casey, we checked in and we don't have any recorded repairs made.
Against this money.
Against
So I
it.
just found an email that does say, in December of '22, I was notified by a letter from the AG's office that we cannot collect barge fees. And you had looked, we hadn't previously to that time had any barge fees, so we just started collecting them after December of '22, and it does say they were to be used exclusively to repair the dock and boat fees. So I'm not saying there wasn't any repairs, but it happened prior to us starting
That
to
was the
collect these
nature of the
fees.
restricted fund.
Correct.
That's correct.
Got it.
Got it. Yep.
That doesn't mean we can't do other things
All
in
right,
terms of what.
we've been at this over an hour already on this one piece, so we still have quite a few things to go. Anybody else want to add anything on Chapter 36? And Amy's going to get us some information.
I do. Q.
Q?
Q.
Q.
We do not have anymore an accessible docking handicap dock, as I recall.
Down here? I believe we do. Bruce, don't we have an accessible dock down there, handicapped accessible?
Nope.
We no longer have that dock marked blue handicapped at the, no.
No? Okay.
That's why
We had that dock marked handicap, the last one on the end.
But it's not anymore.
It's not anymore. We
How
did,
come?
yes. It just, it was not used, and nobody went back and painted it.
Well,
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up.
That's on the selectmen to make
Well-
sure that the dock gets painted handicap.
Okay, let me put it this way, that we had nothing that helped anybody get out of the
Right.
boat, so it really wasn't doing anything.
That's correct.
And that we would, if we were going to do that, and we looked at some of the issues with our beaches, and we would have to install a lift there if
So-
it was going to be handicapped, because that's the only way somebody who's truly handicapped can get out of a boat.
So here we go again, and this is where we're going. We should be getting money for our docks so we could make these improvements on our other docks to facilitate what we should be doing with our docks. and we're not doing that. Crickets.
Well, I think if we're going to look again, I think we need to look around the area and see if there are any handicapped docks.
Why shouldn't we have a handicapped dock?
Well, I guess my feeling is that at this particular time, and with the default budget and everything, I don't think it's the time to add this and a lift.
So
Is
I'm
my-
saying,
is my 2 cents.
I'm saying, why don't we charge people that use our commercial docks to help us pay for handicapped docks? I'm not asking the people and the taxpayers to pay. I'm asking us as a board to find the money out there so we can pay for these things.
The
So
problem you have, John, is that we have restrictions on money that we bring in as to what we can use it for. Some things like this, I think, would have to be in the budget and not in one of our other budget programs where we can take money from the dock system and put it into the handicap lifts. Okay?
Well,
I don't
here-
think we can do that.
Here, I'll do it this way. We have a dockside capital reserve. We can look at that. That has $52,257. And if the board wants to take a look at the cost of putting a lift out there to do it and to remark that if that meets what that warrant article said, there.
Well, now, here's a question. A lift for what kind of boat? A 36-foot boat? A rowboat? A canoe?
Doesn't make any difference.
No, you
It
just,
works for all boats?
it lowers them to a certain point, takes them around, lowers them to a certain point, and it has to be situated so a boat can get to that spot.
Now, Guilford, I know, has probably 6, 8 handicap spaces at their docks. I mean, they've got, I don't know how many, but they've got a lot of them. I haven't seen a lift on any one of their docks.
In Guilford?
Yeah,
Guilford or Laconia?
Guilford. Go down to the state police barracks
Yep.
There, okay.
and look right there where their ramp is and see how many handicap signs are out on their docks.
Okay.
A lot more than we have.
So I think what John
But I
is,
don't think there's any lift there either.
no, I don't think so either. I think what John is saying is, should there be handicapped access to our dock? I think John is saying, yeah. If there is to be handicapped access to our dock, should the taxpayer write a check and then pay for it? Or should those other people, because we're about to get into this conversation, so those other people that are paying commercial landing fees, should they fund that activity on the dock? And I say, yeah, they probably should. That would be smart.
So, no, a handicap lift is not designed to work for all boat types. While some lifts are adaptable to various boat types, like pontoon boats and yachts, others, like swing lifts, are designed for specific applications like direct installation on large boats. Factors like boat size, weight, and hull shape, as well as specific needs of the user, will influence the choice of a suitable boat lift. So, no, we would need multiple spots with multiple lifts.
So we're going to the extreme here. When somebody parks on the handicap spot, it doesn't mean they have to get out in a wheelchair. That just means they have a difficulty or an impairment that allows them to get a little extra in-front care. That's all that means.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we need a lift for them.
Correct. I actually, at the dock, with the DPW, 5 days ago said, why don't we put our handicap sign back up on the closest spot to shore on Dock A, on the side near Dave Bauer's house? And I was told, no, we're not going to put it up anymore.
So I have a question. Who took it down?
It was taken down when they rebuilt the docks, and it was never put back up.
Here this, and let's look where we have it. Let's be reasonable. If they need some help, the place we have it is the most unhelpful spot in our docking system. Is you would absolutely want it closer to where the parking lot is than all the way down at A. So if we're going to put this back, and the reason I circled it is it's not there. We have it in our ordinance. If we're going to do it, then, and we want to help them, I don't think where we have it right now is a good spot, is my personal feeling here, so.
I have a
agree with that.
suggested location. But I don't know when we should talk about that.
Now, later.
Later.
So I think, I didn't know that when the docks got redone, that was taken away. I think the argument that was put forward as to why that particular location was selected was for the ease of navigation of a boat coming in that could flip around or could back in and could, because over by Dave's house, you got a lot of berth over there for experienced boaters, not really like me, who need to flip the boat around. But anyways, I think what John is asking or suggesting is, if there is a need for this capability, do we ask the taxpayer to fund it, or do we ask the fees to fund it? And I'm kind of going down the path that says the fees fund it. So we'll get to that, but that's kind of where I go.
So I think the question for me is, all right, we have this part, we're looking at an ordinance, we have this ordinance, and we don't have the spot. So we either have to get the spot or take this out of our ordinance.
We have to
So
find a
there's
spot.
We either have to do a spot or
Well,
take this out.
we need to find out-
If we don't have it, to have it in here.
We need to find out where we can get funds from for this. So
Well, the last
we'll
time,
have- we'll
we
have
just
to-
painted blue on a bunch of
Yeah.
things, that's all it was.
Yeah, we can just put up
And
a sign.
He's saying you can't get a lift, because you can't get one lift that works for all, so all we can do is paint some posts.
Okay.
It makes sense that a lift is not going to work on a 28-foot pontoon boat, on a 14-foot whaler, and on a 36-foot cabin cruiser. Really? That's the magic lift. That's like the magic bullet theory.
Okay.
So I think Paul makes a good point. I think Brian makes a point of, okay, if we need a lift, we can't service all boats, okay? We can call up the sign company and say, we want a handicap sign to screw onto our dock.
We have one.
You
Okay, go ahead.
we said we don't.
Go ahead.
No, I said we have a sign, we don't have a spot. We have a sign, don't we, Amy?
We have the signs.
All right.
Do
John, finish your thought.
we have the sign, Bruce?
We have handicap signs in the garage. I can put a handicap sign up. The greatest place to put is where the mill boat is. There's a ramp there, and there's a handicap parking spot right there, 10 feet away.
That was my suggestion. Now
And we
you
have
just,
handicap signs.
you just took my
So we
my
get rid of the
suggested
mailboat.
place right out of my mouth. Thank you. You stole my thunder.
Brian, you've got to be faster with your suggestions.
We're supposed to talk about that one later.
Okay, so the suggestion has been teed up for us. We know where the best spot is. We should put a handicap sign up, if we can, after this discussion.
No, we don't have a spot, we have some other issues to do.
I'm going to moderate this by saying, John, I agree with the fact that we need to be welcoming to people if they need extra help. Hard stop, put a period at the end of that. Where that takes place, there has been a practice of having it over by Dave Bauer's house. That appears to be not functional because some people believe it's a bit of a journey to the parking lot, period. There is a bid on the table that says maybe there's another place, period. Let's go chew on that and see where that takes us. And then we figure out how all this stuff gets paid for, period.
We need more information.
We should not take it out.
What do you mean take it? No, we're not taking it.
Well,
out.
Linda said we
No,
should
I
either-
said if we don't have a spot, we should take it out.
I don't think we should take it
If we're
out.
planning to put a spot, then it stays in. We're looking at an ordinance here.
I get
And
it.
as I read through an ordinance, that's not there.
Thank you.
So I think we need to note this on either we take it out or we provide.
Or we keep it in, but we
Or
find a place.
spot, one of the two. But you don't leave it in if you are going to do that.
So I think Linda's right. So the goal of this work session is to chew through this ordinance and discuss changes you want to have, and so that the public knows when they're watching this. This is an ordinance update, which means you're going to go through this a couple times, review the changes, and we are going to have a public hearing before anything is set in stone.
Okay.
Should we see if there's a consensus among the board whether or not we want to have a handicap spot? Doesn't have to be a motion, but a consensus?
Do we,
Are you asking the question, ask the question straight up?
Yeah, do we think we should have a handicap spot
do
on
you
the town
think we
dock?
should have
Yes
I
or
would
no?
raise my hand, yes.
I would say yes, I would say yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
then it's a consensus, so we're going to find a handicap
So
spot.
we got to go find a spot,
Then we got to find the money.
and we got to find the money.
Well, we don't have to find the money. If we have the signs already, all we have to do is,
No lift.
Who says we're not?
Well, maybe.
correct.
So that was the first question. The second question is, I'll entertain what Dave said. Should we have a lift? I would raise my hand, said, yes, we should have a
Yep.
lift.
I would say the same. Only because if you're going to have a spot, whether the lift, as Brian says, will work for every boat, we certainly could get one that would work for most.
I think so. I think that's the thing, is if you
Even
have
if
a
it's a
spot,
hangman's noose.
you should have a lift, because I think that helped address, and then I don't think the mailboat spot is a good spot. Right? You know, that's going to change if we're saying a lift. I think that if I was handicapped, and we're talking physically handicapped for the majority, getting out of that boat without a lift would be very difficult.
I agree with that.
And that's why I said,
The only thing that I will say, and I'm not against helping handicapped people. I have an
Well, you didn't
80,
raise your hand.
I have 87 and 88-year-old parents, and I have an 88-year-old mother-in-law. If they got into the boat and they got from somewhere else on the lake to our town docks, they probably have the ability to get out themselves if they got in, or they have somebody there to help them get out.
I was
have a
there.
lift at my dock. I'm in a wheelchair.
Agree?
My husband helps me get in the boat. I come to here, I need a lift. That's what you're talking about.
Our beloved you know what?
And the word will get around that says Wolfeboro has a lift, so you can go get an ice cream at Bailey's Bubble.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we'll have more
They have
revenues.
dock attendants.
And then we'll have more revenues to put a second lift in from an ice cream cone.
But anyway,
We'll charge him every time we get an ice cream.
Okay.
There's our money maker.
Ice cream fee.
Ice
do
cream.
we want to be here when the bubble opens, or do we want to keep going here?
Hey, ice cream sundaes for dinner would be great.
For me to vote yes for a lift, I want more information. I want to know the cost of the lift. I want to know how many different kinds of boats it will.
Brian, I don't
Right,
think you're
that's all
alone.
part of us going on to look at a lift.
Yeah.
Sure.
We hear
Okay.
you.
Now what?
Correct.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you. Okay.
Good.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Linda, did you say maybe we could use the Dockside Docks Capital Reserve Fund?
I would look at that as one of the things. I'd like to read
I
how
would
that
wanna know
one
where we
was
could get
written.
funds from other
It's
than,
52,257 the last time I
Yeah,
looked.
we
and
can't
the
take it out
trustees-
of the general fund.
The trustees' report says repairing and improving dockside.
Repairing and what,
dockside
Casey?
docks, excuse me.
Repairing and what was the second part?
Improving.
Improving?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's an
Improving would
improvement.
do it.
So we can probably get money from there. We just don't know how much yet.
But again, getting back to the ambition that I think one of our colleagues has, that capital reserve fund got topped off by the voters. I want to, going forward, that this is a busy place. It is cool down there. It is really great. It's busy. And that generates a lot of opportunities for people who use our docks, and we ought to be able to, replenish them, nurture them with some fees that we charge. I'm kind of cool with that.
And I think there's a difference between the capital reserve, because it was repairing, but I think we're talking, isn't it a revolving fund that we could get the fees from the docks and then pay out? We were talking about that with an ambulance.
It's like the police department.
Yeah.
revolving fund.
Yeah, we could set it up that way. And the capital reserve fund would be for your big projects, but you would have this revolving fund.
So there's only certain things, and I don't know what they are, but there's a few like recreation and ambulance that you could do rec revolving funds. So first you'd want to make sure that docks could be one of them, and then you'd have to ask the voters.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
Moving right along. Number 2.
Number 2. Commercial vessel spreadsheet.
I think we did that by going
Well,
over.
wait a second here.
Yeah.
Whoa. I had 36-7 is all about the commercial vehicle landing permit.
Yep.
And on C on that, it says each vessel will require an individual CVLP, and I would like on that plaque the bow number, so that the plaque and the bow number have to agree.
Hang on a
So
second,
somebody
where are you,
who-
Linda? C?
I'm under 36-7C.
Each vessel will require an individual commercial vessel landing permit.
And on that placard, I see us having a placard with the bow numbers on it that must be shown.
So that, the idea there is that that commercial vessel landing permit is going to get assigned to a boat
That's what it says.
and not
Each-
to a fleet of boats.
Correct, and that says each vessel
So when we talked about
will
that, and we-
require an individual. That's all. That's
I'm
what-
okay with that.
So is that fee that we discussed last time at a meeting for one vessel, would that be for each vessel
Yes.
going forward?
Yes.
Yeah, but you would do the length of each of the vessels, so he somehow calculated all of them, I'm assuming, coming in, and now he'll divide it
We're gonna
out
need
by
cameras up at
each
the dock.
boat.
We're gonna have to watch that too.
That's, I don't believe that was the case. I think this person that came in front of us was figuring that was one fee for all vessels.
So we will update our understanding and that person's understanding of the ordinance.
Correct.
I think that's right. You are making you're getting a license to operate a vessel on a dock.
So
If
as
you
it
want a
is,
fleet license, you have to do it P times Q, price times the quantity.
Yep.
okay, so basically what we approved was one vessel.
Yes.
That's correct, and I asked him, only then did I ask him how many he had, was the
Thank you.
first time I understood that he had 6.
Yes.
Yeah, and he gave us the total number of landings for all 6 boats.
But we only proved him for one vessel.
Correct.
Correct.
So all he has to do is take his landing for all his boats, divide it by 6, and say each one of these boats is going to hit this many times.
No.
And
No, that's
Really?
not the way I have it. He has to multiply his price at $273 times 6.
nope, your math is wrong.
I think the question, as I looked at the other companies, all the rest of them run one boat.
Correct.
And that has that's what we've had this for. Now, all of a sudden, we have somebody running 6. So it's a very different a scenario going on here. And so I'm not sure whether we want to make some adjustments in here for somebody who runs one boat and somebody who's running a fleet or something. But I do believe this is where we need to address it.
So I was, if I could, Dave, I was confused by Brian's comment to John that said your math is wrong. Help work me through the math.
Okay, when he came to us and gave us, now, if he was being
Honest.
correct in his mathematics, he came to us and said, I am going to be landing on the dock this many times. He didn't say one of my boats is going to be landing this many times. He said, as a company, I am going to be landing this many times.
Okay?
Correct. And
So
one
therefore,
boat-
if he's going to be landing that many times and he's using 6 boats, the number of times he's hitting the dock doesn't change.
Correct?
Unless he is not adding up his landing fees correct. I think Amy's looking up. How many landings does he say?
So typically, we usually do this, and the person has one boat. So this is unique for me.
Correct.
And I also learned about
Yep.
the 6 boats when it became at the meeting. So I have that permit here. This permit is for a vessel that is 23 feet long, times our calculation of .04 per foot at 92 cents per landing, with an estimated number of landings of 300 for a total of 276. I look at this permit as this 23-foot boat.
Correct.
Not
Correct.
6 boats,
Not
Brian.
6 boats, because I'm
Correct.
assuming the boats
But if
might be
he's using
multiple sizes.
6 and he's saying he's landing that many times, could he come to us and say, each one of my boats is landing 50 times?
Well, here's the other piece as I come down here that I run into problems with him, is we also ask for a schedule. And
Nothing.
all the other boats have schedules. We know when they're coming and going.
Yep.
He's coming and going whenever he wants, and from the letter we received from a resident, he's not just on the commercial docks, he's on the other docks.
Correct.
And so that's, I think, we have to deal with that. And
Now,
that's why I was a placard in the bow number, and if we have a bright placard and he has to show it, that's was what
So
kind of I was trying to get at, and then if we have an issue, we could go back to C.
Yeah.
So how will we ever know how many times he actually
Brian,
lands?
we cannot guarantee any more than anything else. I'm just trying to think up. Other people may have better ideas. I'm trying to figure out how we now deal with somebody who's coming in with 6 boats. He's running his full business off of our docks.
And I think that's where Linda's going. She wants to know each vessel has a number on it, and each vessel gets charged a certain amount of money. If he wants to run one vessel 3 times, or he wants to run one vessel 300 times, that's up to him.
Correct.
But I think you're odd man out saying just because he signed up for one vessel means that he can do 300, we won't know the difference. I think you're trying to stretch it in his favor.
No, what I'm saying is this. You can't just take his 240 landings. Is that what he says? No, how many landings did he say? 300. You can't say 300 landings, multiply it by 6 and say he's going to hit the dock 1,800 times.
No,
That's not correct.
He's got to tell
He's got to
us.
come back to us with a number of landings for each individual
If
boat.
we decide to put it through this way, that's the other issue, is whether we have single boat users and now we have somebody who's a group user.
Correct.
Do we want different regulations for the group
There you go.
user than we
Correct.
have
There
for
you go.
the single? That's what I'm saying.
Or do we even
The
allow them
two
to use more
latest-
than one boat?
The 2 new permitting, what I would call them, the 2 new companies in this permitting that this commercial vessel landing permit has been in place for a long time. And it ran based on business such as the Mount Washington, the Millie Bee, and previously the
They have a schedule.
Winnipesaukee Bell,
They have a
who
schedule.
had a schedule and published it every year. And they had a process. But since then, we've had some new requests.
Business models. It's a
models
brand
come
new
in.
business model.
And these models are on demand.
That's correct.
And I don't know if they can produce us. They can give us an estimated schedule, but they can't produce a regular schedule.
Like the mailboat, too.
But even the Big Sandy, which we approve, they already kind of know when they're going to come in as well, because that's a camp, and they have a previous schedule.
I think,
The
Amy,
issue with the ordinance, and you need to address, is the new models.
So
that are
Amy, you
coming.
put your finger, and Linda did too, you put your finger right on the issue. We have the way we've always done it. People have a schedule, 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the boat horn goes off, that's when the mount is here. That's that. But now you have walk-in business models. And this particular individual is saying, I got a lot of opportunity. I have 6 vessels standing by to bring people in and out of those docks. I say, that's fine, if in fact we want to do that. It's going to be six licenses. 6 licenses. And so P times Q. Now, the challenge is going to be congestion. The challenge is going to be, everybody has a walk-in business, not everybody. The people competing for that limited dock space have walk-in businesses or float-in businesses, pardon the pun. And so there is going to that problem doesn't get better with scale. It gets worse.
And the mailboat is also the same thing. We don't know their schedule anymore either, because they do some sunset cruises, some
Correct.
sunrise cruises.
Yes,
They're
but
also
they-
taking and
no.
having their boat rented for private purposes
Right.
and chartered, so.
They're different because we've given them a spot. That's the difference. This other one is using and where I think Paul's going, you get more of them going into that one spot that we have.
It doesn't get better with scale.
That doesn't get better.
It
The
breaks.
mailboat, we have a spot for them now. What we do with that, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're not in that that floats.
So the
So,
question,
so are we saying that the mailboat is actually not just delivering mail, it's doing...
Correct.
It's doing profitable runs?
yeah, of course it is.
Yes.
And it has for
You have an
years.
email from,
Well,
you have an email
I
from the
remember
guy telling you that.
I remember riding the mailboat when I was 6 years old to deliver mail, and that's what Sandy did. He parked the boat after that, and he came in.
And things have changed in 50 years.
Yep.
So basically what you're saying is now we have a business model.
They're all, very frankly, John, the way I look at it, everyone on that side of the dock is running a for-profit business. Tell me
Correct.
I'm wrong. Everybody over
Correct.
there is running a for-profit business.
That's why
They are
they're
not non-profits. And
Well-
they are either owned by a parent company or whatever. So they're running for-profit businesses, and we are, I shouldn't say allowing, we are providing space, access for them to run for-profit businesses. The question is, does that make sense going forward to have more people come in now that these business models are changing? I want a jet ski, I want a wakeboard, I want to do all of this. Do we have the desire to continue to do that and let it expand? Yes or no?
And by the way, we're the only dock facility of any of the ports around the lake that allow commercial use off of our docks.
So that's a data point. So if I could just finish, if the answer is yes, then we have to either A, expand the amount of available space for these new business models, and the only way you do that is take it away from somebody else, or B, you just simply say, we're not doing that anymore.
Well, or you say, we have X, and that's what we do with the hawkers and peddlers. We have 4.
Or you make a hawkers and peddlers situation out there, and you create a place
A limit.
that says that is for that, and we have a hat, a big hat, we put names in it, and we pull it out.
Only if they don't renew. If you renew,
they don't renew, they're
if you have a spot, you have it. So that's kind of where I was looking back at. And my other thing is here, that's what we can have is a limited number of places. I was also thinking that maybe with the mailboat and the Millie B, that we could have a license agreement that allows them to park overnight. You and I have talked about this.
Yeah, it was my idea.
No, it wasn't all
Absolutely.
your, I will show you on
It was
the
Brian's idea. Everybody out there, it was Brian's idea.
On the 2021 minutes, I asked for a town attorney's opinion on whether we could do a license agreement.
How would that work?
So
You'd
I
have the mailboat
think,
company-
what we're referring to back is what we just talked about in the commercial dock. Okay, well, should we go ask the public what they should tell us, what we should do? Again,
No.
I think that was a bad example to go out to get the barge people to tell us what they should do. And I think it's a bad example to get these private commercial people to tell us what to do. It's
think I
our
heard
job
that.
to tell them
I didn't hear that.
what
I
we
didn't
should
hear
be
that.
doing,
I didn't
okay?
hear that.
So my point here is that if it was just the mailboat going out and getting the mail and delivering it to the island people, that's a service. Now you're going into a commercial situation. We are also leasing our railing for $56 and then another boat for $270. I think it's probably about time that we either say we have the Millie B spot. We have some bills that we need to pay. We have fireworks that we need to pay. We need dock hands that we need to pay for. I think we should put a fee out there for one hawker's permit for $25,000 a year and put all the names in the hat and say, if you want to run 6 boats, here's a dock. You can justify making money. And if you don't want to have 6 boats and you just want to have 1 boat, that's fine. But we have marinas around us that charge people to dock their boats, and they can go to those areas if they don't want to put their hat in the ring for us. But if we want to pay our bills and pay for our fireworks and pay for our dock hands, our taxpayers are going to have to pay the bill.
Go ahead.
I look at it as that these commercial vehicles are very important to our business community. They use our docks. People come down to use them. The lodging was at the recap for 2024, and the lodging industry said this was very important. Their people come for a week. They like to go out on the Mount Washington, the Millie B. That's part of their entertainment. So it's part of that bigger business community that we need to have strong, and the strength of our business community, I think, is the strength of our town. And it's important that I think these commercial vehicles are out there for able to carry passengers. And I think if we go down to one, I think these will have to go somewhere else. They won't be coming down into the downtown, and I think it will take a hit.
So do you think,
I don't think it's a good idea.
People to jet ski during that summertime when they're here on holiday?
Well, that's a whole nother different thing.
No,
Wait. That's another thing. That is a lease agreement. That is a rental. It's not the same as this.
I was thinking out there. Do you think it's for people, if somebody wanted to open a jet ski business out there, a wakeboarding business out there, a guided tour business out there, do you think that would be good for visitors and guests?
Well, we turned around, and when we got the offer for a jet ski, we moved it back. Well, that's how I'm going to answer you, so don't tell me no, I can't answer that way. That's where we put it, and we felt that was important that we have it back there. They wanted to be out on our commercial docks, exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. So,
I believe, no.
Go ahead.
I believe that we should handle this similar to our hawkers and peddlers and have X number of opportunities, and at that point, you cap it. There are more people who'd love to come in and have carts all over town, but we limited. So we have X number that can come into our dock, and so that's how I would do it.
So
I was next.
when you're
So
done, I'm going to talk about the spaghetti.
I was next. So are what we saying, maybe I misunderstood, and I don't think I did. So what we're saying is, if I wanted to open up a jet ski business, I can't go out there.
We're going to have X number of spots. If one of these people aren't there and you want to do a jet ski, I'd have a hard time with the jet ski.
So we're going to pick a winner and a loser. And I don't like that idea.
I think it makes we do it with hawkers and peddlers. It's very clear. We've had the Mount Washington coming in here for years. It's an important part of our economy. The Millie B, has been here since 1998. I think those are important. The mail boat has been here even longer. We have now a bunch of newer boats. That is why we're trying to deal with this. We've had long-term boat coming in here that have been important. So I think we do. We cap it. We didn't have no problem capping hawkers and peddlers. We do the same thing here.
So I think we're picking winners and losers.
All right, Dave, I want to unravel the
Are you
bowl.
done, Paul?
I'm sorry?
I'd like to hear what Paul has to say.
We get to decide who gets to go where. We get to decide how much space we lease out there. My answer to that is, and I like the idea of hawkers and peddlers, I'll give it to you my way. The Mount Washington is iconic, period. It belongs here, period. We probably should talk about how much they pay and is it compensatory from what's going on. The Millie B is iconic, period. We should probably talk about how much they pay, and because it is iconic. But at some point, they may decide to go someplace else. The other vessels all appear to be competitive with each other. They're offering cruises. They're offering, kind of things. They've expanded their business away from what their core business was, and now you have these other people who want to come here and they want to do, all kinds of wonderful things. The question is, how do we deal with that? Do we deal with it or not? And I say, if you want to deal with it, take all those other vessels, put them in a hat, open up a dock space, and you pick one, but there's an entry fee of so many dollars. You pick one every year, or two.
So the only issue we have with that is the Dockside Restaurant used to have a one-year lease. It was shut down for 2 years because no business could go in there and create a business that thrived and survived unless they had a 5-year lease and they had a grandfather clause that they knew that they could re-renew their lease. So if somebody is going to start a business here and they get a dock for 1 year and they invest $300,000 in boats, and then the next year they pull, they're looking for a price. You kind of have to do like we do with our hawkers and peddlers and have a certain number and let them get what they get. Now let me explain the spaghetti. This is the problem that we have. We have a residential dock in Back Bay that we lease for $1,000 a year. License for $1,000 a year. Then we have the Millie B that has a landing fee charged to it, but it sits in a dock the same way that the jet skis sit in the dock. It goes out and back on runs, but it's not coming here and landing. It's there. They're paying $1,200 in landing fees. Then you have the mailboat that is doing the exact same thing as the Millie B, but they're on a residential dock, not on a commercial dock, and they're paying $300 for landing fees, but they're doing the exact same model as the Millie B. They have a mail contract for X number of dollars, but they also, and by the way, half of their proceeds from their extracurricular runs go to Dive Winnipesaukee as profit. Now we have Torin, who comes in with his wake boats, and it's now 6 of them, and he pays a landing fee. So how is his landing fee a landing fee when he comes and goes, but the mailboats is a landing fee when they stay there and they leave and come back? This does not make sense to me.
Not at all.
They're not doing the same thing. These are different ways that they're operating. We need to standardize this. Maybe we have a licensing fee for Back Bay, a licensing fee for the Millie B, a licensing fee for the mailboat.
Correct. That's what I, yes, that's
So-
what I agree.
so here
And
we
then
go.
landing fees for
we
boats
go
that
again.
come and
Here we go.
And those boats, even with that license agreement, pay
And
the
let me dig in
landing
just
fees.
quick. I did a lot of research, so let me dig in a little quicker. The Mount Washington owns the dock in Alton. The Mount Washington owns the docks in Center Harbor. They pay $16,500 for their land in taxes in Center Harbor. They pay $5,000 for taxes in Alton. In Laconia, they get a free ride. They do pay taxes on some land that they own there where they have a kitchen and they have their municipal building, but their long boardwalk down and their dock for their boat is paid and maintained for by Laconia. For us, we charge them landing fees. They don't pay landing fees anywhere else on the lake. Center Harbor allows no commercial operation off their docks. Meredith allows no commercial operation off their docks. Laconia allows no commercial operation off their docks. Guilford allows no commercial operation off their docks. Alton allows no commercial operation off their docks. We do allow commercial operation off our docks. I'm believing we're maxed out.
So,
Maxed out.
So I'd
We
like
need
to, I'd like
to be
We're maxed out.
limited.
are you all set, Brian, or would you
Yes.
like to go on? Okay,
So I have a
so,
lot more, but go ahead.
all right, so I'm going to go to Boo-Hoo. Boo-Hoo is our dock in the Back Bay. Our people that rent docks over at Sawmill Marina, Wolf Trap, they're a business. For town of Wolfeboro to lease or give somebody a discounted rate for a dock, I don't think it's in our purview, and I don't want to see it happen after this year. The docks downtown, if the mailboat was getting mail and going and giving rides while they delivered mail, I would be good with it. But they've gone into a different business model, and allowing people to ride for a fee structure that puts them in a different business model. The guy with the Sandy, Big Sandy, the guy with Joran that spoke with us, Six Boats, Wake Winnie, Winnie Adventures. I'd like to give up the one dock where the Millie B is and say, folks, here's our number. All your names go into a hat. That's our one hawker's dock.
Or it's our handicap dock.
Or it's a handicap dock, one or the other. And then basically, if we don't rent it, then it's a drop-off and pick-up dock. But for us to continue down this road, I think it's time where we have to draw the line, because I was met with 6 people this week, and they said they wanted a dock. And so how do I say to them, well, you know, geez, these guys get in before you did, so we're not going to be able to. And I understand the Mount Washington. I was on the phone talking to Jared. That's why I was late to the meeting, because I was talking to Jared on the Mount Washington. And I was talking to him about our connection with the town of Wolfeboro, what they do for us and what we do for them. I think that the Mount Washington is a lot different than these individual commercial vessels, because, yeah, they may rent places to stay over, but you know what they also rent? Short-term rentals. And so we're contributing to the problem. I'm just saying, I'd like to finish, please.
I'll finish.
So when you get down to it, you can say, let the commercial businesses do what they do. Let's get out of the business. Let's stay historic. Let's go with the Mount Washington that's been there. If the Millie B wants to put their hat in the ring, we spend a lot of money on that dock, building that thing out. We built it out because the Mount Washington cut in half, moved the dolphins out, able to move the dock out. We built that thing in the middle. I don't think it's up to the taxpayers to sit there and say, why does this guy get a free run and they get to charge money? Yeah, it's a nonprofit, but you know what? They can go to any other place and they can get the same advantage in any other spot. They can ask Corinthian. They might want to let them have a fee structure for less money.
They gotta go through the planning.
I got to say, I'm totally against that.
Well, that's fine.
Well, you had yours. I'm
Sure.
going to say mine. I believe that the Millie B should stay here. I think that they are iconic, as you said. The Mount Washington and the mailboat. And then I think we set X number of spots for people to come in and drop off. I think that this is part of who Wolfeboro is. I am sure that there are people who say, nope, I don't want them to be there. But I think there's an awful lot of people who like having and are used to having those 3 boats in our docks, and I will support having them here. I think I support doing a license agreement, which is what we do when we rent our land, just like the tanks down there. For the mailboat, and I would do that as for the Millie B, for the privilege to be there overnight, and then have them still pay the landing fees like everybody else. And I think the town, when I look at what's going on in Back Bay on that one side of one dock, in the worst part, and us to be able to have those jet skis, and we made a decision to rent it through a license agreement instead of having them out in Wolfeboro Bay. I think that's a good decision for Wolfeboro. And I'm pleased they're there. When we did that, it was supporting 2 young teenagers. Yes, they had parents behind them that money, but they started their business there, and they've grown from there. So I think those are part of what Wolfeboro does. I think these are important to the downtown, to all our tourists, even our people who come in our Airbnb. They're all our tourists. They all spend money in the town, and that's important for our businesses, because we all know they've got to make it in the winter, because they aren't going to make it in the summer. They're not going to make it in the winter, and definitely not in March. So,
Dave? Dave? Speak.
Quickly.
So thank you for that, Linda. That was then, $1,000 for the season. That was then. We are, they have options. They can rent dock space from somebody else. We are effectively competing as a low-price supplier of dock space in Back Bay for a commercial enterprise. That's what we're doing. That's a winners and a losers. I can't support that. I just think that's a thumb on scale thing. It was a good thing to do when some young teenagers were trying to bootstrap a business. I got all that part. But right now, I don't think that's a good idea. What goes on out front is I think the Mount Washington is iconic. I can't vision a day where they're not here. However, we need to make sure that the fee structure is compensatory. The Millie B, it's iconic, and we need to make sure the fee structure is compensatory. I got that part. The mailboat has changed its business purpose as I have read it. They've changed their business purpose. They made the boat bigger. They're not, if I understand correctly, they are owned by a separate company right up the street who has docks. So I say I'd recommend that has to change. I'd further recommend that dock that is currently occupied either becomes the handicap dock or it becomes the place where these other people who want to do startup businesses can put their name in a hat and they can have access to that dock, or maybe two of them can, and you do it as a hawker and peddler situation. But I think that I don't want to be in the business of picking winners and losers, and I don't want to be in the business of deciding who can have a jet ski, who can't have it, who can have this, who can't have that business. That is not what we're about. So I'm in the model that says, going forward, we should find our way to begin to end our involvement in the commercial leasing of dock space, with the exception of the Mount Washington and the Millie B.
Just one more thing, real quick.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I agree with Paul about startup businesses. I don't know how long that business has been a startup, but if we wanted to give somebody new a chance to do a startup, and since these people have proven their business model, they could probably go and get to the market rate, and they could go rent a dock somewhere else, and we could give the next two people a fresh start to start a business. And to the Mount Washington, I brought my tax bill here tonight. It's $1,044 for a blank lot. The Mount Washington pays $2,030 for a landing at their dock. And I appreciate Brian finding the information that they pay $6,500 in taxes at another location, because to be honest with you, when I talked to Jared, I said, we'd like to see other boats come in here, but you know, we don't want to give the impression that you guys are making a lot of money. In 1960, they had 60,000 passengers, and I did the calculation at $20 a head. That was 1.2 million. Now they're getting $47 a head. And so I think that we could charge them a little bit more money. They could come to us. They're coming to us next week. And I think we could come to a better agreement where it's beneficial to the taxpayers of our town.
So the Mount Washington isn't $6,500. It's $5,000 for Alton, but half of that is land and half of it is dock. So it's about $2,500 for each. Then if you look at Center Harbor, it pays for a parking lot, the building where they rent out all their equipment, the storage building where they winter the boat all year long, and the dock. So when they broke it up to me the best they could, it's about $2,500 in taxes that they pay for the dock. And so if Laconia gives it to them for free, and Alton is $2,500 in taxes, but they do have to maintain their dock, and in Center Harbor, it's $2,500 and they have to maintain their dock. Again, I look at it and say, they're not that far off when they pay us $2,100. So those numbers are close. Could we up it to 3,000? I guess so, we could. With regards to the mailboat, I think that the mailboat should not have should not be the only boat operating a commercial business off of a residential dock.
Agreed.
We do, on the front. On the back, we do have that dock for the jet skis. It's a lousy dock, by the way. It's very shallow. You couldn't put a regular boat on it. You couldn't put a boat that can go underneath the bridge in the spring on it. So I don't have much of a problem with that. I do have a problem with continuing to allow new companies to come in and just letting them pile up. Here we go. Here's 6, here's 7, here's 8, here's 9, here's 10. We have 4 hawkers and peddlers. Right now we have 4 different boats that operate. I think that the mail boat should find its own home. I think that our MED electric boat should go to the mail boat slot, and we could have another drop-off spot or the handicap spot on the right-hand side when you go into that dock area. Now, if you look at lifts for handicap boats, they have to be operated by somebody on the shore, which means that you need somebody there all day, every day, 7 days a week to operate the lift for the person going in and out of the boat. So I say we all, the 5 of us, we can all volunteer because it's going to be about 120 hours a week. We can all volunteer 25 hours and stand down there and take care of the lift.
Have fun, Brian.
Yes,
Hey,
me.
you know what? There's a lift at the Windrifter Pool. Nobody is there to operate it. Whoever is brought has a help, gets them in, they lower them, they bring them out. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're talking about. You don't need somebody sitting there to run the
I thought I
lift.
already said that. I just said that earlier. Somebody help them get in the boat to get to the dock. Somebody will help them get out of the boat. That's what I said. Now you're just contradicting yourself.
No, I'm not contradicting
Okay.
myself at all.
Okay, let's knock it off. Chapter 36, we're still on number 1. We got 9 things to deal
Dave.
with tonight.
Can I say something? 36.7, number 5. A statement indicating the operator's agreement to accept responsibility and to reimburse the town for damages to the docks. Are we saying that that was included in the permit as their statement, their swearing off on the application?
Yes, and then it
Because I
says
don't-
applicant
we
should
don't-
also provide the proof of insurance. That all
Right.
Yeah.
seems to go together.
Yeah, that's where the Wi-Fi should be hooked up, so the camera's looking at the dock, so that when the damage is done, somebody goes down there, we can go back to the camera and say, here it is.
We have no cameras down here at the town docks, right? No. Okay. All right,
I think,
We do have one, don't we? We have one from up above that shines down. It's not ours, though.
not ours,
No.
belongs to you.
That's Dockside. Not Dockside, it's Peter Ford.
We have cameras, live feed cameras through the police station at the pavilion. And I believe Brewster Beach
correct.
has one. And I think that might be it.
That's it.
I don't think we have one at docks.
No?
There used to be a camera there, but I think it might have been Wolfeboro Bay Real Estate or somebody.
Wolfeboro Bay Real Estate continues to operate a camera.
Yeah.
They operate a camera on North Main Street. The camera, I think that's in question, was attached to the downtown grill building, and it was kind of looking down. I don't know if it's still there.
No, that one's not there. And the one you're saying, it just points down the road.
Yeah, it just points down the road.
So I just Googled live cam Wolfboro Town Docks, and there's one on the top of the building down there on Market 21.
Yeah, maybe. It's there, it's not ours.
It's not ours.
Is it operating right now?
Who knows?
I wasn't going to watch it for a second.
Because I've tried to watch
That's fine.
I've tried to watch it in the last couple of years,
All
and
right.
there was nothing
Is there anything
operating.
else
Yeah,
on chapter 36?
I do.
Go ahead.
On E, I would like that to add that a placard must be visible, which will go along with C.
So you want a plate, some kind of a placard?
Hang, you know,
Yeah.
where they have to show
A
it.
windshield sticker, a bumper, something.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
got it.
something.
Like a dump
something-
sticker.
Yeah,
We could probably get something similar to what they use for the beach pass.
Sure.
yes,
And we
there
can,
you go.
And then we can write the number in with a marker.
And then you have your bound number, so you can't just take it to any boat. And then the next one is the question at F is, do we want to change the price per foot for the landing fee? Which is the other way we go and deal with what people are paying. And that's the other one that we should talk about.
I'd like to discuss this next week when the Mount Washington comes in, because they were talking about the 4 cents a foot. I mean, I think the whole, again, I'm holding my tax bill for $1,000. They're coming for their dock for $2,030. I think I mean, there's not even a comparison. I have a blank piece of land and they have a dock.
So,
That they land and unland a couple of months out of the year. They
Yeah.
don't own it, they don't
No, they-
stay at it more than, what, 15, 20 minutes?
I mean,
Okay.
again, they're making money off that dock.
They all are. And so I'm looking at the landing fee and saying, should that landing fee be more than 4 cents per foot, which would affect everyone on that list? That's where I'm saying.
I'd rather have a flat fee.
so if I could weigh
Okay.
in, this respectfully, this conversation kind of, it drives me a little wacky, because you can either set fees by pulling a number out of some part of your body or some other part of your body, or you can do a build-up. You can look at competitive fees, best practices,
Around any?
or you could look at what is it going to take for us to pay ourselves to ensure ongoing furtive operations of that waterfront area. By coming up with and Linda, I agree, we got to look at the per foot number, but I don't want to pull a number out of some part of my body and say, we're done. We really should take the time to understand, maybe, what does it take to run that operation down there, the waterfront operation? And I think I heard John say something like, hey, you want to have dock hands? We all say yes. Even though a couple of weeks ago I said, let's not do that. We all say yes. Do we want the taxpayer to pay for the dock hands, or do we want the fees to pay for the dock hands? I vote having the fees pay for the dock hands. I go, good, all right? So we'd write down on a piece of paper that costs us, I'm making the number up, $100K. Okay, good. And do we want to be able to repair our docks, maintain our docks, have other things going on down there? You run the list of materials.
18, right?
And then you come up with a total number and you go, okay, how do we divide that across the people who land?
That's fine, but we have to deal with F. We're looking at an ordinance here, and so F is one of the ones we need to look at.
And I just got to correct something so people at home don't go, wow, we don't pay $100,000 for dock hands. It's $18,000 a year.
I'm just making a number up.
Okay,
But
well,
you come up with a number, and
20
then
would've been
you
close.
do a gazinta. You figure out your total cost, and then you figure out what the fees need to be, and boom. And you're right. We have to come up with a number, but right now I find us moving towards a path of pulling it out of some part of our body, and I think that's not responsible.
Anybody who understands algebra,
Algebra?
yeah, would know that if you have a boat that's 235 feet long, like the Mount Washington, and you have a boat that's 23 feet long, and you try and use a formula per foot, it ain't gonna work.
It ain't going to work.
Then that's fine, let's take it out.
Because one boat is 10 times longer than another.
But Dave said, were we done? We were not done. We have F in this ordinance that we needed to address. That's why I brought it. We may not want to do it that way. If we don't, F is going to have to come out of here.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at.
And
We're
a
looking
flat
at an
fee,
ordinance.
a flat fee, we could, if you charge the Mount Washington $10,000 and then you charge the Millie B $10,000, how does that flat fee work?
That could be disbalanced.
100% disbalance, especially if you looked at the email we got on the Millie B. Oh, they made $10,367 last year on their boat. So if we charge them $10,000, then they just made zero.
Yeah, so I
And
agree
if
with
it-
that. So that's why we had a guy come with us that said he's got 6 boats so that we can charge him $50,000 a year and he can make plenty of money and we can charge the Mount Washington $25,000
And Mount Washington won't come in here.
No, the
They'll
Mount
go
Washington
to,
will
they'll
say-
forget it, they won't come.
Well, when
They're-
I talked to the guy, I says, well, if you get charged more money and then you can bring your other boats, he says, well, we'd love to bring our other boats in. We'd love to have dinner cruises and all kinds of other stuff. And so, I mean, so they'd
They
like
can
to bring in
bring
other
other-
Yeah,
boats.
we've
They can bring
never
in other
stopped
boats
them.
right now and land them. They got to pay a
Correct.
landing fee for them. Nobody's stopping them from doing that.
Nobody's stopping them. For Lake Winnipesaukee Day, we're asking them to bring the Spirit and the Mount here, and we actually asked them for the Winnie Bell too, but the Winnie Bell isn't fixed.
So we just, and again, maybe just me, but I just heard a conversation that says, if we were to raise our fees, there might be somebody who can't afford them and would have to leave. Did I just hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. So either A, our fees are confiscatory, meaning they're outrageous, or B, they're really low and we may have a subsidy going on. And if we believe that it is in our best interest as a town, for whatever reason, economic development always comes to mind, if we believe that that's the right thing to do is to subsidize certain people, then so be it. But let the voter know that.
My best guess would be to take and standardize the Millie B. If we decide to keep the mailboat, and I think the mailboat now is a private venture and it can go somewhere else.
I agree with that.
I think that the Millie B should be charged the same amount to start with as we're charging another person who stays in the water all the time. If we want to add landing fees on top of it, that gives us a little bit more money, and it's something that we gradually increase a year and get it closer to market value. But you don't want to take a business and go from 1,000 to 10,000 and say, guess what, you're done.
Yeah.
Why not? If you don't get the money, then you know what the balance is. Then you reduce your funds down and say, okay, well, nobody would rent it, so we'll reduce our rate. And you know what? We've opened the dock up to people that can come in and do pickup and drop off. We haven't lost anything.
If I could, John, that shock to a business model is a shock. It's like saying we're just going to charge 135% tariffs on stuff coming in.
Correct.
The country. So the shock to the system. But if I heard, my colleague over here, student body left, we need to start down the path that says we got to get out of the business of subsidizing a business. I got that part. We got to make deliberate moves. And if the person on the receiving end of the bill says, uh-oh, this thing's going to start getting bigger and bigger, they either have to increase their volume or they have to make another decision. And that will give us time and them time to maneuver.
And there's something to be said about cultural value of things that happen in town too. Because if you wanted to charge every kid what it costs to run our Parks and Rec department,
Yep.
you can charge them each $8,000 and no kids would ever have Parks and Rec again.
Come on,
We could
that's
charge
not-
them
that's
for
not
Little
where we're
League.
going.
What do you think kids pay for Little League? They pay $12 to sign up for Little League. We should charge them $500.
Brian, you're off course
wait,
here.
wait.
Again, there's new people out there that want to run new businesses and they want an opportunity. If we open it up, let the market bear what that people want to pay.
So then we got to do the same thing for hawkers and peddlers. We got to throw Hot Dog Bob off the dock.
Hey,
Brian, you're
That's what you're saying. You're saying that hawkers and peddlers go the same way, and it goes in a hat, and everybody gets a chance every year.
We've been at this now for 2 hours and 15 minutes, and we're only at number 1.
Yeah.
So, my feeling is that we're not going to get anywhere with some of this tonight anyway. We're going to have to bring a lot of this back, particularly this chapter 36, because we've been on it for 2.5 hours. So I'm going to recommend that we pick another date, another time, because we're never going to get through this. I don't care how much we push or how much we want to deal with it.
I think some of it we have read, we've kind of...
I think some of it we've already done. But
Yeah, I guess my feeling is, I don't want to go back over all these. I think some of this is background information, which
Yep.
led us to the discussion we have. I don't think we have to go down all 9 of these myself. I thought they were great information as we were really, this is what we were dealing with, and this was, the rest of them was a backup
If everybody
information.
wants to agree that we have backup information enough, and that 36 is what we're really dealing with,
So I want to make a suggestion. Yes, the backup information was for you to noodle through this, and you only have a very short time to go on this, and I know it could make a lot more discussion, and you can't make a decision like on the price, but if you could kind of finish going through down to 3611, that way I can at least create a new draft for you to
Okay.
look at.
that's fine with me. Everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
So,
May I make?
because some of it is just, as you said, backup
Yeah,
information.
that was to me.
Looking at our agenda, I think we've already covered probably 1 through 6.
I don't think we've
but-
made any decisions.
Yeah.
But it's just the backup. That's what helps us generate a bunch of our questions.
I also would like to point out specific to G,
Yeah.
right after the fees, where we have this 3 installment payment. There probably was a time or a reason why we did it then, with including that, we'd have to make it by the 15th. But me as the person who tracks on these payments, I prefer the whole payment just be paid up front like we do
Yep.
for the barge.
Yeah.
So if
Agreed.
we could change that.
Up front,
Agree.
yep. That sounds good.
Casey was going to say something.
That was one of the things I was going to say.
Yeah.
And the next one, I could even let her, do you know where we're going next? K. K is not, I think we recently just talked about the revolving fund.
Yep.
It's saying that you're taking these revenues and putting them aside for, and we're not doing that. My note is, I don't think this is being done, and it is not allowed.
It's not being done and it's not allowed, both?
That's my opinion, yeah. You can't put fees away for a specific purpose.
Right.
So in the entire world of government, there is no way to put fees away so that you can,
No.
There is a revolving fund, as we recently talked about earlier tonight.
so we'd have to create one.
We
If this is
can't
one of
only-
the things that we can,
We have to go to
and
the
then you
voter.
also have to ask the voters.
We have to go to the
So
voter.
it shouldn't belong in your ordinance at this point.
Yes,
All right.
there you go.
So K goes out.
Okay.
Thank you.
But it's an action item to say, if we're really serious about it, we should put that to the voters.
Correct.
Right, but we need to take it out of here if we're
Yeah, no, I
doing
got it.
it,
Come on.
and then
All right, that's
that
fine.
goes to, there's a list of warrant articles. Amy's doing it, and our secretary. This is a list of
Yeah,
possible warrant
okay.
articles for 2026.
Understood.
But-
Thank you.
But in 2024, it was less than $5,000, so, I mean.
It's
it also-
minuscule, minuscule.
It has to be fixed before it's even worth
Minuscule.
making revolving fund for.
Right.
Right. And the other one for H, and I don't mean to start you in a whole war and a discussion, but this is kind of something that I've noticed about the ordinance. So we have our iconic ones that have put out their signs, and we have the sign requirement. But part of this process now is, if you get the permit, you do get to put out the sign. So that's food for thought. We are in an internet world, and a couple of these new companies, their business model is kind of calling you to the dock versus, either putting a sign out that you know where the Mount Washington is. And even the Mount Washington sells tickets, pre-tickets before, when they used to sell tickets right there at the docks, so you had the fees. So I don't know if you want to kind of go over this piece. Then eventually we might run out of space. Luckily, when we rebuilt the docks, we have one of the railings put back up where the signs are, but it's pretty tight when you put these size signs that are in the application on there.
So I know I have a 10-inch by 12-inch sign at a location. I pay $250 a year. And we're talking about a 20 by 40-inch sign, and we gave somebody a permit fee for $56.
For a sign permit.
No, to
He's just
launch,
saying we
pick up
aren't
and launch a
asking. We're
boat
not
plus the
charging
sign.
enough.
There's
Not
no,
charging
there's
enough.
no question that these
This is
fees
charge.
don't hang together. There's no question in my mind about that. And they're all done for good reason, and we spent, how many hours, Dave? 2 hours, explaining those things. I think the bigger question will help us get clarity. And I've asked it, and I'm not going to repeat it. But that bigger question has to be answered, in my view, and then we can get about the business of setting fees and signage and all that stuff. But that's kind of where I'm at. I think we're
I think that's
spitting in the wind.
that's why we started this thing, was to try to get in, and I think it's a work session, and it's all those ideas coming out. That's what this is all about, is to take all those ideas and have them come forward. I'd like to go back to Brian's comment about recreation, and we provide services. And I agree about the docks, we provide services, but the difference here is this is commercial.
Right.
And our recreational docks is the services that we provide. We're having the issue over the commercial and what our responsibility is in that commercial thing, which is different to me than
and having commercial vessels at residential docks.
whatever it is, it's the commercial piece of it.
And at least 3 of us were here when the warrant went out for the docks, and then there was the dock extension, and I think that was a 225 or 250.
300, and it went.
And the voters just kind of just bam, and the idea there, because I was one of the. I should probably stop selling, because every time I try to sell something, it doesn't go through. The idea there was we'd have more capacity and we could have more vessels, and the voters said no. So I think the appetite of the taxpayer is, we like what we got. We want you to keep investing in all of that. We have this little issue over in the corner that we have, set-asides, and I think they expect us to deal with that. And from a price point of view, but also from a who gets to play point of view. And I think that's where I think we should go next time.
So, Amy, I have a question. Do we expect coming forward in our meetings coming up, our Board of Selectmen meetings coming up in the next few, can we expect more companies coming to us asking to get into our commercial docks?
Well, currently I have the application. Mount Washington is due to come next week, May 7th.
Oh, any new companies?
New companies.
I don't have any new ones, but yes, currently any new person could come in, because this is our current ordinance.
Sure.
And they can make an application, and they would have to come before the board just like anyone else
Yeah.
For this year.
for this year.
Yeah.
And then, so because the ordinance, even if you change it, we're still looking at public hearings, and you wouldn't even be able to get this done by maybe July.
So we should have
I'm
a doc-
thinking this is going to be our season. This would be for next season.
We should have a dockers and floaters license.
I
hawker-
like that one, dockers and floaters.
Like hawkers and peddlers, the dockers and floaters. And we should only give out 3, 4, 2, whatever we want to do.
I know it's none of our business, but we have other providers of dock space in this town. Are they providing, to our knowledge, are they providing startup businesses that they own, or even startup businesses that want to come and use their docks? Are they provide? Do we know? In other words, can I go to another company right up the street, around the corner, and rent a jet ski from them? Or are we crowding them out because our fees are so low that they can't make a buck at it? We could be crowding them out. Do we know?
No.
I don't know of anybody else that rents jet skis. I know the
just a
Goodhue
business,
Hawkins.
that maybe rents a boat tour, or, wakeboarding or whatever. Jet skis was just a kind of a metaphor.
Yeah, I don't know specific to jet skis, but I do think Goodhue probably provides some sort of boating services.
They rent everything.
Rent boats, or
Yeah, they rent
what have
boats.
you. But
They
I
rent
don't know
boats.
I
if
think
they
they're a
put a
little higher
driver.
quality.
So to the question that somebody said in Back Bay, these are our docks and we should be renting these out. I think Sawmill Marina has a large number of docks, over maybe 100, and the Wolf Trap, they have a large number of docks. probably more than 50. So I know
72.
that there's, and I know those are,
There's 72 of them.
I know those are docks that are available to rent
There's
out
only
there,
30
so.
at Sawmill.
And my question is there other,
They're
are there
all
other
sold.
places where these startup companies could, could go, where they could start their business? Or are they all trying to compete in here because our prices are so low that we're crowding out all these other people who want to make a buck at it?
So
don't think so.
Sawmill Marina boats, their slips are for sale. You can buy them. And they're up to probably $50,000 to buy them, and they rent them for about $2,500 a summer.
You got to find out whether they'll allow somebody to run a business. That's the
might not
issue.
allow commercial out of it.
That's the issue we've got to find
Correct.
out, which would answer your question.
And they offer marine service, and they offer
I think that's the
parking,
question
and they
that needs to be
offer
answered.
a lot of things that we don't offer.
And fried clams.
All right, Amy, do you have enough information to deal with some of this?
So you got to compare apples to
Yeah,
apples.
so I'm going to take some of the notes that I took and create a new strikeout draft of this current ordinance and provide it back to you. I'm assuming you don't want to do this at another selectmen's meeting, or do you want to do another work session?
We'll do another work session at some point.
Dave can't
Yeah,
wait.
so we have the Mount Washington coming to us
I think
next
we- I
week.
think we have a lot. I think if there's
So
a
should we be prepared
And you don't do it
to,
at the selectmen's meeting.
what are they gonna meet with us for?
So they are coming for their current annual request, which is what our current ordinance is. So you can't change anything
Can't
on
change
them
anything.
this year.
Okay.
So they are going to pay, the per foot
Mm-hmm.
and the fees that they normally pay, and their permit is complete and ready to go. They do provide their schedule because they have a schedule. They do come here 6 days a week. That backed off a couple years ago. So, but they still come 6 days a week here now.
He said 5 days a week, and after May and June on the Saturdays.
So right before Lake Winnipesaukee Day, they had actually cut down their ridership in Wolfeboro. They no longer go to Meredith unless it's a special occasion. They are now only in Center Harbor, Alton, and Wolfeboro. They're increasing their ridership to Wolfeboro because we threw a birthday party for them, and we got them involved in the community. They started offering other rides. They're finding businesses in town now that are chartering them for more events. So we've developed a rapport with them over the last 3 or 4 years, and they're increasing
They're
their
iconic.
presence in Wolfeboro.
They're iconic.
And they did as the economy picked up,
Right.
come here. But we've been an important port for them, and I think Winnipesaukee Day was another reach out to them. And I agree with you, Brian, that helps expand that. And I think the Mount Washington brings a lot of people into town. You go down there and look how many go on and come off.
If there's nothing better than watching that boat come in.
Yes.
There's nothing better. And I agree with Brian about the thing. In fact, they're having one of those political party things is going out of Laconia this coming week or something on the Mount Washington. But I agree with that. They're iconic. And they've been here for a long time. I got that part. I would think we'd all suffer.
So to that point, I agree. I embrace all of that, but it doesn't discount the fact that we still have to pay our bills, and if they get traffic coming in, then they should be able to say, look, we'd like to help you out so that we can help pay for the things that we're using in your town.
And John, I am 2,000% in agreement with you, but to do that right there at the microphone where we come up with a number and kind of go, there you go. And not suggesting we do that, but we kind of go, there's your new number. I think that's bad business. If we think there should be a conversation between ourselves and the Mount about landing and fees and all that. I think that's something that is done not at the, what I call at the cold face. In other words, it's right up in your face and you have to make a decision. That to me is bad business. We should have a conversation with them that says, here's what we need to accomplish. We know what, we'd like to know what you want to accomplish. How do we create a long-term solution here? I would love to do something like that, but to just, and I'm not suggesting we do this, but to frisbee a number out there because we haven't taken the time to study it, I think is bad business.
But that's what we're doing right now.
And that's bad business.
No, we're trying to figure this out right now. We're not throwing things. We've just spent 2 hours talking and listening to each
And a half.
other's idea. And a half.
Thank you.
Okay?
2.5 hours.
Okay, 2.5 hours, and we have a better idea, and we have ideas to go home and think of that we may have not had before we had this
The
conversation.
$2,500 that they pay.
Wait, I'm not done.
Okay, I thought you were done.
I think this is what the public wants to hear. They want to hear us tossing around ideas and trying to solve a problem, and I think that's what we're doing.
And we have to remember that the tax money that they pay in Alton and in other places, so they pay $2,500 in Alton for the dock. Their dock goes up in value every year. They also pay the maintenance on it. Before our docks were rebuilt, they owned that dock. They did the repairs on that dock.
Okay.
Did we collect landing fees then, Linda?
Do we charge them taxes either?
Who? When they own their dock?
When they own this dock here?
I believe we
So
did.
they've always paid a landing fee,
Yes.
and there was a time when they owned the dock, and we
Yes.
changed that. So
We
they did both.
Correct.
We rebuilt the dock. When we rebuilt the dock, they didn't own it anymore, which allowed us to have the Winnipesaukee Bell there. Once we freed that dock up, and I think they always did pay a landing fee.
And the,
So is $2,000 a good price for them?
I think that's still what we're trying to
they're getting a
figure
pretty
out.
they're getting a pretty good deal, and we can adjust it, as Paul says, with talking to them and negotiating. If they pay $2,500 in Alton, but they own a dock that if they decided to not go there anymore, what could they sell that dock for? Hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's going up in value every year. So they're not losing $2,500 a year paying taxes on Alton.
Right.
They're making money on that dock. The same with their property in Center Harbor. They're paying $16,500 in taxes, but they're making money because their property is going up in value. So they're probably spending more money, wasted money, on our dock than any other dock around the lake. If you put the numbers-
$2,000 is wasted money.
when they're making money at their other docks, yeah, they're making money because those things are going up in value. I bought a dock at Pier 19 25 years ago. I paid $19,000 for it. They're now worth $100,000. What do you think their dock was worth 10 years ago in Alton? It's probably doubled in price. They're making money off their real estate at those places, even
All
though
right,
they're paying
somebody want to
taxes.
make a motion that we adjourn?
public comment.
We do.
Yep, go ahead.
You got to look at the whole piece, not just little bits and pieces, the whole apple.
Yeah, Suzanne Ryan. That was the most frustrating meeting I was watching at home. I couldn't stand it. I had to jump in the car and come down. 20 years ago, I called Linda Murray and I asked her, can I rent a dock in Back Bay? I was renting over in Alton. No, they're not for rent. And I said, well, wait a minute. What are you renting those for to the jet ski? And I got the number and I said, I'll give you, I think I was paying $1,200 a year. I'll give you $1,200 for the other side, because I think at that time they maybe were renting just the one side. No, we can't do that. We've got an agreement. Okay. All right, so here we are. We're right back at the same discussion again, and nothing's changed. What goes along with that when you're talking about the mount, everybody agrees about how beautiful and iconic it is. There's no second guessing that. But I will say, for them to sail into our harbor is probably far more beautiful than sailing into Alton Harbor. So it's to their benefit, too, to be allowed to enjoy the beauty of our harbor and bring their people over here. So, in my little world of antique business, my rent just went up $75 on my space this year. My other shop doubled my rent this year. So, I don't think there's any disservice, or it's not business smart to say to the Mount, we have a depreciation factor on our dock, and we need to come up with a percentage. Don't kill them, but a percentage why, you know, the cost of money and all that, we have to go up a little bit. The last thing I would say is the smartest thing I heard tonight was a statement by one of you. That was then, this is now. And I would like Selectman Murray to quantify your statement that all this rentals and leases to these people for tuppence, that they bring in business that sustains these summer businesses. The summer businesses know how to adjust their seasonal revenues. They know there's not anything in the winter. But if you can quantify that, not hypothetical, quantify what they bring in when they go buy a $6 hamburger or a $3 ice cream cone. What do they bring, these rentals that you're renting out to, these leases and rentals? I don't see it. And when I hear the numbers, I'll retract my question.
Well, Suzanne, I took it from a gathering that happened on the 2024 season. It was a recap, and it was the lodging industry that said these were important for their business. They didn't give me a money amount, but I got it from lodge people telling it to me.
That was then, this
no,
is now. That was then, this is
that's
now.
2000.
It's all short-term rental now. It's all different.
2024 was last summer. And by the way, it wasn't 20 years ago, because 20 years ago, the jet skis didn't have it. So you may have called me, but I just want to make sure it's not 20 years ago.
It's 15.
I have to go back. I think it's 11. That's all they've been in business.
If you'd let Amy talk when she was trying to talk, because she's the one that's got the records here, but nobody was paying attention to her. She kept taking the microphone.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Public Works, taxpayer. I came here to thank you people for letting us do the docks again this year. It's a great thing. So many families come. I'll tell you some story, a small story that these young couple came. They just came to Wolfeboro, and the poor girl dropped her phone in the lake. This nice grandfather and two granddaughters jumped in the water and grabbed the phone and dove in and gave this lady the phone. Right, Dave? They were his granddaughters.
Yep.
It's such a family thing down there. It's a great thing. And Linda, now I do agree with you. You got to pay us to go down there. It's expensive. But it's making Wolfeboro special. If you don't want to be special, let's take the sign down that say, oldest summer resort in America. And another thing, I'll never sit on that side of the table. Thank you.
Second.
Good night, Bruce.
All right. Anybody else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. We stand adjourned.